Amazing how one click can change your life completely.
Say you're sorry, darling. Say it's all your fault. Say you miss me and you wish that you answered my call. Say you're not done falling. Say our love is hard. Say you're waiting for me, that you wanna press the start.
Now he must join forces with the monsters to protect the only place that accepted him and break the defense of an entire empire. In a room with the lights off, there was a young man surrounded by piles of study books. The only light came from his computer. There, isolated, he murmured, 1 billion. If only I had that money, I could escape. In the news that was constantly being published, a man named Kim Yui-soo was running for the political assembly. In several interviews, his son was mentioned, a young man whose reputation seemed to reflect that of his father. The boy, named Kim Ji-hun, was known for frequently appearing near the top of the rankings at the prestigious Manhwa school, catching everyone's attention. While looking at the news about Kim Ji-hun on a cell phone, a pair of girls approached the young man, and one of them jumped to hug him from behind. "Wow, Ji-hun, that photo turned out amazing." Whispering into Kim Ji-hun's ear, the girl who hugged him excitedly said, "I have something to tell you. How about we go outside for a moment?" Seeing Kim Ji-hun leave with the two girls, two young men sitting nearby commented on how jealous they were. Even though he was just a nerd because he was the son of a politician, Kim Ji-hun seemed to be friends with everyone, except someone like that girl. However, what they didn't know was that Kim Ji-hun had been taken to an alley behind the school. There with the two girls were two other students who looked more like gangsters. The girl who had previously hugged him excitedly now wore an empty expression and asked him, "Why don't you lend us some money?" With a worried look, Ji-hun reminded her that he had already lent 300,000 the previous week. There was no way he could lend more money so suddenly. However, as soon as he refused, one of the guys who was smoking grabbed him by the neck, looking deeply into his eyes. "Damn, Ji-hun! Should I just report you then? Wasn't it you who made that illegal website?" Hurriedly, Ji-hun tried to deny the accusation. "No, I never said it was for illegal use." Still, the group treated him as an accomplice, and the girl said in a disinterested tone, "Well, we can just give ourselves up. Anyway, who has anything to lose here?" Knowing she was talking about him, Kim Ji-hun felt a strong despair, because due to one mistake, he would tarnish his father's reputation. Touching Kim Ji-hun's chest, the girl encouraged him to get the money. "You can do it. I believe in you." That night, upon returning home, Kim Ji-hun stopped in front of a door. His hand trembled as he approached the doorknob. Frustrated, he blamed himself, convinced he should never have said a word. As soon as he opened the door, Kim Ji-hun was startled by a cold voice. "Are you just going to stand there? Do you have something to say?" Looking up, Kim Ji-hun faced his father. Adjusting his tie with a cold look, Kim Yui-soo stared piercingly at his son. "The elections are coming. Even if you're no help, don't stain my honor." Seeing his son standing there with a frightened look, Kim Yui-soo finished getting ready, questioning why he was silent. Adjusting his backpack on his shoulders, Kim Ji-hun forced a smile and replied, "Don't worry, Dad, I won't disappoint you." But with a cold look, Kim Yui-soo scoffed. "Disappoint me? I don't know if there's anything left to be disappointed about. Just do what I told you." Forcing a smile, Kim Ji-hun nodded. Upon arriving in his room, he panted heavily in front of the computer. Grinding his teeth and biting his lips, he asked the air, "What do you expect me to do? Why are you doing this to me?" Suddenly, Kim Ji-hun felt something cold scratching his hand. He was startled and jumped back, only to realize it was his kitten licking him, who always kept him company. With a more relieved look, he asked, "Ruru, were you worried about me?" The kitten Ruru jumped onto Kim Ji-hun, meowing and playing with his owner while tickling him. Lifting his little black kitten, Ji-hun sighed, "You little pest. Whether at school or at home, I only have you by my side. Ruru, you're all I have." With his cat keeping him company, Kim Ji-hun launched a game, Night Defend. Kim Ji-hun had finally defeated the 99th wave of monsters, and now only one wave remained to conquer the final glory. However, on his screen, the game over notification always appeared, again and again. Frustrated, this was the usual result. Kim Ji-hun was already exhausted from restarting his campaign hundreds of times. He had tried everything he could, but the game was cruel. In the live stream Kim Ji-hun was watching, an angry young man screamed, pulling his own hair, "Enough! This game is trash, it's over, I'm quitting, this wasn't made to be beaten, guys, don't play this game." Frowning, Kim Ji-hun watched the stream thinking the same thing. It had been a year since the game's release, and many people had reached the 99th wave, but no one had managed to reach the 100th. But Ji-hun would not give up. Not now. To escape such a terrible life with Ruru, he saw that game as his only way. Kim Ji-hun had an item he could trust, obtained by defeating the boss of the 99th wave, the fully upgraded Heart of Rizzeldrak. There was no item with better stats than it. With its 1000 magical attack bonus, 10% critical chance, and 100% critical damage, it was superior to anything else, and gave Kim Ji-hun hope to keep trying. Still, he wondered what else he needed to do. Putting some snacks for himself and Ruru on the table, he paused to rest. Wanting one of the snacks, Ruru walked on the table toward the bag that held them, but at that moment, the kitten stepped on the cell phone and accidentally touched the item Kim Ji-hun had been keeping. Ji-hun's eyes showed his shock when he saw which button Ruru had pressed in the item options. A notification appeared on Kim Ji-hun's cell phone screen. Item successfully dismantled. In complete despair, Kim Ji-hun looked at the cell phone screen and the notification. He couldn't believe that everything he had achieved until that moment was lost. Ji-hun put his hands on his head, talking to his cat, Ruru. By dismantling this, I'll have to climb all the waves again from the start. But overwhelmed by frustration, Kim Ji-hun asked himself, even if I start all over, will anything change? But at that moment, he noticed something. By dismantling the item, some materials had been given to him. Among them, an item called Dragon's Soul. He was confused to see the item, since normally only essence fragments were obtained by dismantling equipment. A thought crossed his mind. Immediately, Kim Ji-hun clicked on the newly obtained item and used it. The cell phone screen lit up. Kim Ji-hun thought, this item must be behind the real strategy to defeat the 100th wave. Thus, Kim Ji-hun clicked the button to restart the attempt at the 100th floor. Much had already happened since he started playing that game. Even during classes, he sought information that could help him. He played secretly during classes. At home, he spent hours on the computer testing new strategies. And even on the street, his face rarely left the cell phone screen. Now Kim Ji-hun had found a new path. He had already conquered the 99th wave, and by dismantling the Heart of Rizzeldrak, he discovered a new item. Confidence appeared on his face. After using the Dragon's Soul, he clicked the button to start the 100th wave. On the screen, a small blonde character stood still atop the city walls, casting spells from time to time to defeat the monsters of the 100th wave. Kim Ji-hun hurriedly clicked on the character, making her cast spells and sword attacks. Watching the spells fall on the monsters, their health and the character's own decrease, Kim Ji-hun begged, come on, please, this time let's finish this. Unexpectedly, but for the first time in history, a notification appeared on Kim Ji-hun's screen. Victory! Excited, he shouted, I did it! Kim Ji-hun quickly looked back, searching for Ruru, but the only one he found was his father, gloomily holding a golf club, asking, what did you achieve? Surprised, Ji-hun stood up, placing the phone on the table, only to hear his father say in a dark tone what had happened. I received a call from your so-called friends. They tried to extort me using your little crimes. Afraid, Kim Ji-hun tried to explain, saying he never imagined others would use what he created for evil. However, Kim Ui-soo didn't want to talk. Completely terrified before his own father, who seemed darker than ever, Kim Ji-hun took a step back, trying to apologize, assuring him it would never happen again. Still, Kim Ui-soo raised the golf club and furiously brought it down. Kim Ji-hun saw with his own eyes the shards of glass scatter. The golf club had hit the phone screen, shattering it completely, while Kim Ui-soo shouted, pathetic coward! When have I ever hurt you before? At that moment, looking around the room, Kim Ji-hun asked, Dad, have you seen Ruru? But the answer was cold. That's something you don't need anymore. Kim Ji-hun repeated those words to himself, not yet understanding them, until he ground his teeth furiously as the truth dawned on him. His father, however, pressured him with a frightening look. Why are you looking at me like that? Grinding his teeth, Kim Ji-hun asked again, where is Ruru? But the answer was even worse. Don't worry, she must be with your mother now, in the afterlife. Despair took over Kim Ji-hun's face, even more so when his father touched his face, showing a manic smile. Just do as I say, and you will have good health, honor, everything you want, so never disappoint me again. Treating his own son as just a tool for his own gains, Kim Ui-soo said coldly, I believe in you. But Kim Ji-hun couldn't take it anymore. Those frightening eyes, that life, being alone again. As he fell to his knees in despair, a robotic voice came from the partially destroyed phone. Congratulations! You are the first player to conquer Night Defense. But for Kim Ji-hun, it was too late. As tears streamed down the boy's face, he no longer found a reason to run away, a reason to keep enduring that bitter life. Ignoring the young man's pain, the narration from the phone notification continued. You will be invited to my world. At that moment, a lightning bolt, cutting through the silence of the night, struck from the sky and pierced through Kim Ji-hun's bedroom window. At the same time, lightning struck the sky, tearing through the day of a medieval city nestled against rocky cliffs. Amid a church where knights waited attentively, a glow appeared, bringing Kim Ji-hun with it. Surprised, they watched him eagerly. He is here, the one who saved us, the legendary knight. Excitedly, the people cheered and celebrated the arrival of their savior. You have finally arrived. Our savior has come to rescue us. Strangely, Kim Ji-hun felt he was not crying, as if his emotions had been erased and replaced by others. Interrupting the crowd's clamoring, a bearded man cleared his throat, asking for silence to speak with the guest. Are you the legendary savior who saved the kingdom? Seated on a throne, wearing a red cloak, jewels, and an imposing crown, the kingdom's king asked. Even from afar, Kim Ji-hun could see him. He recognized him and saw him as a computer screen, with a subtitle of the question asked. On the throne, the man wearing the crown introduced himself. I am Byrus Jordia III, king of the Jordia kingdom. Legendary knight, the kingdom is in danger. Monsters are invading from all sides and we are struggling to contain them. During the king's speech, a man hurried into the hall shouting, Your Majesty, something urgent has happened. The kingdom's setting, as well as the situation, Kim Ji-hun, still with ears ringing from tears, could recognize. The man reporting to the king was exactly like the introduction of the game Knight Defense. After hearing the man, the king spoke again to Kim Ji-hun. The situation is terrible, so I command you, become the leader of the knights and protect the kingdom. A notification appeared before Kim Ji-hun, a faction selection, asking if he would accept the king's request. Kim Ji-hun stood up. He didn't know if this was a dream, but asked everyone to listen carefully. I don't care anymore about that 1 billion or anything like that. I don't need it anymore. With deep sadness, he remembered Ruru, all the fun moments they had together and how close they were, as well as how losing her affected his will to live. The people of the kingdom were confused by Kim Ji-hun's words, and watching him closely, many questioned if he was too weak for a legendary knight. The king, however, answered Kim Ji-hun, I don't know what this 1 billion you speak of is, but if you become the commander of the knights and protect humans from monsters, whatever your wish is, I will grant it. Surprise and astonishment appeared in Kim Ji-hun's eyes, who asked the king, Anything? You will give me anything? The king replied to Kim Ji-hun, but in a way that reminded him of his worst nightmare. You don't need to worry. Just do as I say, and you will have good health, honor, and everything you want. I believe in you. Unexpectedly, Kim Ji-hun saw his father in that king, in his face and words. Furious, he shouted, I won't do it! The king was surprised, as were all the nobles around the hall, by the legendary knight's words. No matter where I go, everyone only sees me as the son of a politician. That guy, that girl, they all just wanted to use me. And now here too. You want me to become a puppet under the name of legendary knight? The villagers were shocked by the words of the one who should be their savior. Darkly, Kim Ji-hun questioned the king about his words. Health and honor? I don't need that damn nonsense. With a cold look, Kim Ji-hun pressed the reject offer button, while answering everyone, You all fend for yourselves. Thus, the offer was rejected. The man who warned the king about the monster invasion was shocked. He broke out in a cold sweat, asking, Would a legendary knight do that? This can't be happening, right? At the same time, the notification of the request made to Kim Ji-hun began to glitch and change form. Knight Defense. After a certain number of times, monsters attack a kingdom, and the player must defend it. It was a defense game, or at least that's what everyone thought. The notification before Kim Ji-hun changed to a crimson-red tone, and new words appeared. You rejected the human faction. You are now permitted to choose a new faction. Amid shadows and wine, the notification of a secret route appeared. The monster faction was now open. He only needed to press a button to join it. He was surprised, because in a defense game, joining the monster faction had a completely different meaning. He would not defend but attack, causing destruction, panic, and chaos. The king, who had remained silent, gloomily stated, All choices come with consequences. The king then shouted for everyone in the hall to hear, This person is no longer a legendary knight. He deceived me, the king, causing danger to this nation and its people. He is now an enemy. Knights of the kingdom, seize him! Immediately, a wave of knights moved, blocking Kim Ji-hun's path and marching furiously against him, with rage in their eyes. Sighing, the protagonist saw himself begin to be surrounded. He had endured many things up to this moment, and now he could endure no more. In the face of the siege and the blades flying toward him, Kim Ji-hun ground his teeth violently. In the next instant, a red glow appeared on his body, falling from the skies. The king was shocked by what happened before his very eyes, in the middle of his royal hall, in his palace. A change had occurred in the body of that former legendary knight. With the faction selection completed, a dark being appeared before Kim Ji-hun, extending a hand toward him. That being extended its power to the young man, causing several notifications to appear. You now exceed human limits. You incite hostility in humans. Monsters are now interested in you. You now understand the language of monsters. Finally, the most important notification appeared. The monster faction's goal is to destroy the human faction. From now on, Kim Ji-hun found himself at the moment to attack. As the energy surrounding him rose to the skies, amid the power of the crimson sun, goblins, orcs, and all kinds of monsters appeared outside the kingdom. The first wave was about to begin in 10 minutes. The monster faction had only one goal as its ultimate objective: to annihilate the human faction. Kim Ji-hun, who had been tasked with this mission, would receive a reward upon completion, the chance to obtain an item from that world, as well as return to his original world. Thinking of a specific item, Kim Ji-hun remembered his mother from the time she had adopted Ruru to keep them company. With the item he imagined obtaining, he silently said, "With this, I could go back to that time." In the king's hall, the various knights had surrounded Kim Ji-hun after a great commotion. The siege was complete and he had no escape route. Many were still disturbed by the explosion of energy that had just occurred, an energy seriously malicious. The king, seated on the throne, frowned. He realized the man had taken the form of a monster, perhaps something even worse. The energy Beirut had just felt was something he had never seen before. Kim Ji-hun looked around, analyzing what had just happened. Choosing a faction had never been something that existed in the original game. Changing factions, he waited for something to happen. And just as he waited, a notification appeared before him. The main mission, Monster Faction's Oath. Its instructions were that he had to break through the soldiers' defense and attack the humans, to receive as a reward a random item box. Looking at the mission, Ji-hun saw a change in it compared to what he had seen in the game, but it still followed the original progression. This made him expect that next would come a random rank S knight ticket, a character. However, unlike the ticket he expected, Ji-hun received an egg. Normally in the human faction, the player would start with a knight, but by choosing the monster faction, he received a random rank S monster egg, which he could hatch immediately. Understanding the changes, Kim Ji-hun accepted to hatch the egg. Immediately, a burst of light erupted in the middle of the hall, scattering eggshells in all directions. A mist arose amid the destruction, where a pair of wings was revealed. The knights were shocked, believing something had been summoned. Kim Ji-hun knew that monster very well, which surprised him to receive it right at the start of his campaign. It was the most powerful dragon boss, the one that appeared on Wave 99, the cold-blooded dragon, Rizeldrak, the red terror of the battlefield. Kim Ji-hun was certain, if Rizeldrak were summoned in the center of the human city, the entire faction would be crushed instantly. However, an unexpected turn happened. Instead of a huge dragon like the one he knew from the 99th floor, Ji-hun found only a happy baby. Shock appeared on Ji-hun's face. The dragon was only level 1, which unexpectedly also meant it was 1 year old. The little dragon Rizeldrak saw a hand slowly approach its body, and since it was its master's hand, it stuck out its tongue, unexpectedly licking him. Feeling the wet and rough tongue, Kim Ji-hun couldn't help but murmur, "Ruru." Confused, the little dragon looked sideways at Ji-hun. As soon as he obtained the small summon, Ji-hun also received a skill, Sovereign's Eye. Quickly checking the passive skill, he discovered he could see monsters and items' stats. The knights, who had until then been still, gritted their teeth, trying to encourage each other not to fear just a small monster. Raising their swords and spears, they all charged at Ji-hun at once. The protagonist no longer cared whether this was a dream or not. His decision had been made upon seeing the little dragon. Looking at a certain area, he locked his target, causing a magic circle to appear in his eye. He was looking right at Rizeldrak. Using his Sovereign's Eye skill, Ji-hun found in the little dragon a skill, Dragon's Breath. Trusting his dragon's skill, Kim Ji-hun ordered, "Rizeldrak, use Dragon's Breath." Immediately, the little dragon gathered a large amount of dark energy in front of its open mouth. The armed knights jumped at Kim Ji-hun to eliminate him, to prevent the dragon from attacking. Ji-hun was startled to see spears and swords coming toward his body, but before he was touched, the sphere of dark energy in front of Rizeldrak imploded, only to explode the next moment, wiping out the guards before it. The dragon's breath crossed the entire royal hall, tearing the air and those in front of it in a crimson beam. The castle exploded, and the energy from Rizeldrak's attack leaked, tearing the city's sky, showing no signs of stopping. With the powerful strike, part of the castle broke off and was thrown against the city, where the villagers, shocked, could do nothing to stop the massive stone weighing thousands of tons. A circumference of at least several dozen meters was opened in the castle wall by Rizeldrak's strike, which even shaped the clouds with its attack. An incredulous expression appeared on Kim Ji-hun's face. Even so small, the dragon possessed overwhelming strength. Nobles and knights fell to the ground, not believing what was before their eyes. On both sides, people, mouths agape, commented, "It's a being of darkness. What did he summon?" A small smile appeared on Kim Ji-hun's dark face. This had been easier than he thought it would be. According to his mission, all he needed was to conquer the castle, to then return to his original world carrying an item with him. In the game Knight Defense, there were tons of items, and Kim Ji-hun firmly believed that one of them had the power he needed. There was no reason to rush. There was no urgency for Ji-hun to go home at that moment. That was why, for now, alongside Rizeldrak, he decided to focus on completing all the missions. After many fled the hall, Kim Ji-hun addressed the king. "Hey you, representative of the human faction. From now on, I will be the one to sweep you all away." The king frowned as he saw things worsen by the moment. Holding the uninterested little dragon, Ji-hun declared, "After all, I have to earn my reward." As the sky darkened and the smoke caused by the destruction in the palace spread across the city's skies, some people moved everywhere. A young woman with golden hair tied in a ponytail was surprised to see what was happening at the palace. Carrying a spear, she ran inside. "Hold on, please, your majesty, I'm coming." Inside the palace, while facing the king, the protagonist asked the little dragon, "Rizeldrak, that attack from earlier, please use it once more." Upon hearing what Ji-hun had just said, the counselor quickly shouted, "Squires, protect the king! 2 layers of protection! No, 3 layers!" The knights obeyed, even knowing that no matter how many layers they created, it would be useless. Extending his hand, the protagonist commanded the little Rizeldrak, who began to gather the energy of the dragon's breath. The target is the king. At the same time, a gray-haired knight was running toward the palace, quickly approaching the great door. 4 layers of squires stood in front of the king, ready to protect him. The tension inside the palace increased every moment, while the dragon's breath sphere grew larger and larger. However, just as the palace door was opened, the little dragon's attack failed and dissipated. The knight entering the palace smiled cheerfully upon seeing the king. "Your Majesty, you are safe." The counselor was confused to see the dragon's attack fail. In Ji-hun's eyes, a shock appeared. From his knowledge, when knights used abilities, they consumed a certain amount of mana points. But looking again at Rizeldrak's ability, he discovered that the little dragon had the same limitation. Ignoring the special attack's failure, Ji-hun commanded, "Rizeldrak, launch a regular fireball." However, the little dragon only spat an attack that fell on the ground a few centimeters away from him. Both Ji-hun and Rizeldrak were shocked by the sudden change. Kim Ji-hun cursed himself for having thought things would be easy. Now, he had no choice but to wait for the ability's cooldown. At that moment, the knight in golden armor who had entered the palace began walking toward Ji-hun, questioning, "Are you the arrogant bastard who dared to target the king's life?" Looking at the knight, Ji-hun recalled his knowledge about such classes. In knight defense, there were several classes of knights, from rank D, apprentice knight, through rank C, B, A, and finally rank S, the elite knight. Among the 12 elite rank S knights known as the Zodiac Knights, he recognized the one before him now as Ares. Muscular and carrying a spear, Ares arrogantly positioned himself in the palace. At that moment, the king's voice was heard. "Ares, the strongest knight of the kingdom!" Upon being summoned, Ares addressed the king. "Your Majesty, are you well?" Ji-hun felt things were getting worse as the king in front of the knights ordered Ares, "War is imminent. Eliminate the palace intruders immediately." While disdain appeared on the knight's face, a strong flame appeared on his spear as he nodded in agreement to the king's order. "As you command." Kim Ji-hun tried to think of something in the last moments. He didn't want to have come here only to be eliminated on the first day, in the first hours. Then he remembered something, the main quest reward, which had not been obtained after completion. As Ares' spear sliced through the notification, frightening Kim Ji-hun, the protagonist shouted, "Give me the reward now!" As soon as Kim Ji-hun accepted the reward, Ares' spear hit something solid that materialized in front of him. Ares was surprised to hit a chest, believing it to be a summoning spell. Looking at the chest, Kim Ji-hun saw a golden glow emerge after the lid was opened. From the magic chest, a sword began to appear, making the scene even more surprising. A glow of light took shape in front of Ji-hun. The red sword appeared like a miraculous item emerging from a dimensional portal inside the chest. Still surprised, the protagonist used the Sovereign's Eye to analyze the sword. The name of this crimson ruby sword was Hellbringer, an S-rank item that provided 9,909 attack power, with the ability to add extra attributes. This sword brought rupture and chaos, and legend said that one day it would unleash the underworld itself. Rizeldrak's eyes shone with curiosity upon seeing the item, while his own master, still shocked, could not believe that an S-rank item had been obtained in his very first random loot box draw. Kim Ji-hun didn't know who had summoned him to that world, but somehow he felt this being wanted him to wipe out the entire human faction. The sword fell heavily to the ground, its tip destroying the soil. Standing upright, it waited before its owner, ready to be lifted. However, surprise appeared in Ji-hun's eyes when a chain reaction occurred. With the hole that had been made in the wall, many cracks had formed, and with the new ones created by the sword, part of the palace collapsed like an avalanche of destruction. Kim Ji-hun was thrown out of the palace through the hole in the wall, experiencing a free fall from the castle perched atop a mountain. Screaming in fear, he could not stop the fall, which was getting faster and faster. In the midst of his fall, he cursed, "What kind of rotten palace is this that it can't even handle the weight of a sword?" Kim Ji-hun saw the ground approaching every second. Fear appeared on his face because he hadn't done anything he wanted yet. He didn't want his end to be imminent. He didn't want to become a pancake. But in the last meter before hitting the ground, Kim Ji-hun felt something grab his shirt, preventing him from turning into a puddle. Surprised and looking down at the ground below, he wondered what had happened to stop his fall. Above Kim Ji-hun, 2 red wings were flapping hurriedly. Straining to the utmost to carry his owner, Rizeldrak saved Kim Ji-hun from the imminent fall, making him extremely happy as he remembered that his summon really was a dragon. Throughout the city, people looked up surprised. What is that? A bird? A flying saucer? It's a person flying. Despite having survived, a certain anxiety appeared in Kim Ji-hun's eyes. He had almost been eliminated. Starting in the middle of enemy territory was truly a ridiculous opening for a campaign. However, thanks to this, he discovered something important: the difference between his powers and those of the Empire. Currently, the Empire only had Ares, since the campaign was just beginning, but rank S Knights would appear soon, and precisely because of that, Kim Ji-hun needed to become stronger. Flying over the city while carried by Rizeldrak, Ji-hun returned to the main topic. For now, escaping the Empire comes first. At the same time, inside the palace, Ares pointed his spear to his own neck. Overwhelmed by a huge feeling of guilt that fueled his fury, how could I let the one who insulted the king escape? How dare I call myself an elite knight? I'm useless and pathetic, a man worth nothing who can't even repay the king's blessings. While Ares drowned in self-judgment, someone poked him. Hey, the king is calling. Ares opened his eyes upon hearing about the king and immediately knelt, apologizing. Forgive me, your majesty. Please punish me for what I did. I let the invader escape. The king reassured the rank S knight and reminded him, the sun is setting, you know what that means, right? Looking at the horizon, Ares commented, the monsters will grow stronger. The king appointed Ares as the commander of the war, ordering him, go to the walls and defend the kingdom. After Ares left the palace in silence, the king contemplated everything that had happened. While Ares prepared, a young man and his dragon flew over the city. Being carried, the protagonist had time to think. Knight Defense offered a huge prize of 1 billion, but it had been forgotten by the public due to the game's difficulty. The monster wave most criticized for its low difficulty balance was precisely the first wave, Wild Goblins. Unless the player started by drawing an S-rank knight with an area attack skill, it was almost impossible to stop them. However, since the kingdom currently had Ares, who possessed the fire element and an area skill, it was unlikely that the first wave would break through the wall. Stopping to think about Ares, Ji-hun realized that if, instead of him, a rogue-type knight had crossed the gates, he wouldn't even be alive at this moment. Snapping out of his thoughts, Kim Ji-hun looked down and was startled. He realized he was getting lower and lower. Rizeldrak was doing his best to fly carrying Kim Ji-hun, but the poor dragon was growing more and more tired, causing them to fly at an increasingly lower altitude. Ji-hun encouraged the little dragon, as he could already see the kingdom's gate. Just a little more and they would leave the city. However, Rizeldrak ended up dropping him after losing his strength. Kim Ji-hun screamed in fear as he was dropped by the dragon, because in front of him was a large stone brick pillar. The impact could not be avoided. A great curtain of dust rose as Ji-hun crashed into the wall. Gritting his teeth, the protagonist got up, scratching his back. Still, he was surprised that although he had hit the wall, his body was in perfect condition. This meant his body was not that of an ordinary human. While brushing the dust off his clothes, Ji-hun noticed a pair of boots beside him. Thinking they had no owner, Ji-hun decided to put them on. But at that moment, someone approached, questioning him. That outfit of yours, I've never seen it before. Who are you? Shock appeared in Ji-hun's eyes upon seeing the person before him. Blonde hair tied in a ponytail. She was none other than an S-rank knight. Her name was Lib. Fulfilling her role to secure the city, the knight approached, demanding, show me your identification. The reason Ji-hun had been able to handle the 100th wave while playing in the real world was because of a character no one could stop. Despite being rank S, Lib was considered less efficient in defense than B-rank knights. She was only used for dungeon raids or adventures. She was the abandoned knight. However, by using the dragon's soul on this supposedly inferior character, she had become the key to his victory. Lib extended her sword toward Kim Ji-hun, demanding once again, hurry up and identify yourself. Standing before the knight's sword, the protagonist named her, leaving her confused. You know me? With a furrowed brow, Ji-hun spoke fearlessly. I know you very well. You caused me hundreds of failures before I fully understood your worth. Frowning even more, Lib questioned what he meant. Lib had been the ultimate key to Ji-hun's strategy, but now that the factions had changed, she had become the one Ji-hun planned to eliminate first. The young knight with the golden ponytail had become a stumbling block for Kim Ji-hun. Outside the walls, the sky began to darken. Goblins, already awaiting the siege, growled fiercely. On the walls, soldiers preparing to defend drew arrows from their quivers, ready to attack the monsters approaching the ramparts. The horde of enraged goblins carried clubs and large bones used as weapons. Their sole goal was to reach the kingdom's walls, break down the gate, and invade the ramparts. However, the humans would not allow it. At the command, a rain of arrows was launched at the goblins, who began to fall one after another, but the number of goblins was astonishing. They managed to reach the walls and began climbing them, yet the humans were prepared. They started dropping huge stones on the climbing goblins, knocking them down from great heights. The war had begun. A swarm of goblins surrounded the walls, while archers and knights defended their posts. But as the goblins' advance became more persistent than the humans could handle, the defenders began to think they might not hold out any longer. Gritting his teeth, a knight called his commander, even asking if he was still alive. But just as the knights felt desperate, a helper ran to announce, "Ares is coming!" The soldier who had been complaining just a minute before became extremely excited upon hearing that Ares would be present. Soon shouts ran along the wall, "Hold firm, we must hold out!" While the commotion happened outside, Lib kept her sword pointed at the unknown man, demanding an answer. "Who are you? Where are you from? We are currently at war. If you don't answer, I will have to judge for myself." Although wanting to eliminate Lib immediately to prevent the worst-case scenario, Ji-hun knew he couldn't do it. In close combat, there was no way he could defeat an S-rank knight no matter what. Unable to defeat even one knight at this moment, Ji-hun chose another path, retreat. Raising his hand and smiling innocently, he introduced himself. "Actually, I'm just a normal citizen from District 1. I only wanted to contribute to the war effort, but I got lost." Amid Kim Ji-hun's lies, Rizeldrak, who had been buried in the ground after the fall, freed himself, jumping excitedly. The little dragon immediately caught Lib's attention, who raised an eyebrow and looked at him. "A monster? Why is there a monster inside the royal palace grounds? Don't tell me that explosion earlier was caused by him?" Rizeldrak jumped excitedly around Kim Ji-hun, who under the tip of the sword was sweating as if inside a sauna. He knew Lib would start suspecting he was an accomplice, and if that happened, there would be no turning back. Quickly, he thought about asking Rizeldrak to carry him away, since Lib had no ranged attacks and wouldn't be able to hit him. However, there was no way to fly with the knight so close. Suddenly, the knight turned around, confusing Ji-hun by stating, "I already understand the situation." Confused, the protagonist asked why she was turning her back on him if she had understood what was happening. Then, ignoring Ji-hun, Lib stared at the little dragon, revealing her thoughts. "You must be a citizen being chased by the monster that attacked the royal palace. Stay behind me, I will protect you." Confused, the little Rizeldrak looked curiously at the knight. Faced with that gaze, the knight swallowed hard. Rizeldrak stared at her with a pure, sweet look, like a child asking for a hug. The knight began to tremble and blush, trying to force herself to attack him but failing. Watching her, Ji-hun understood what kind of personality Lib had. While they talked, a great explosion of flames happened outside the walls. When Lib looked toward the explosion, the protagonist signaled Rizeldrak, pointing in a direction. The pair quickly united. Rizeldrak grabbed Ji-hun, and both fled before the knight realized. When Lib looked back around, she realized both the boy and the monster had disappeared. At that moment, a knight found the knight. "Lib, there you are. Let's go to the main gate." The main gate mentioned by the knight was currently under attack. Several blows shook the gate, and the knights inside trembled in fear of what was coming. Little by little, the gate began to crack. The wood could no longer hold. Lib walked among the guards, calling attention. "Everyone, put away your bows and prepare for close combat." Goblins threw themselves against the main gate, while a giant orc walked toward it with a huge club. The giant monster, ignoring the arrows shot from the walls, raised his spiked club, roaring furiously. His attack, heavier than all the goblins combined, hit the gate, making its destruction even more imminent. The knights, anxious, gripped their swords. Many of them trembled. In everyone's eyes, the spiked club pierced the kingdom's gate, opening a large hole. Immediately, Lib imbued light power into her sword, shouting, "Prepare to attack!" Breaking down the gate, the great orc roared fiercely in the name of his conquest, a liberating war cry for his companions to follow him in the invasion. The goblin horde, led by the orc, invaded the city, and before them, Lib, leading the humans, charged swiftly. Watching the battle about to begin, Ares appeared, calling the knight. "Commander, I haven't even arrived yet, and the gates are already down." Furiously, he shouted, "You useless trash!" Immediately, he released his powerful area skill, Flame Wall, sweeping everything in its path toward the monsters. The goblins couldn't escape and were caught in the attack. Seeing his strike hit directly, Ares placed his spear on his shoulder, smiling victoriously. "Dance for me, you filthy monsters, until I feel better." In the mountains, far from the kingdom, Kim Ji-hun watched the battle unfold. With a furrowed brow, the player who had survived all 100 waves observed the first one from a perspective never before faced. This time, he was on the other side of the story. This time, he was seeking to fulfill the monster's ultimate goal, annihilate humanity. To accomplish this, he needed to completely crush the kingdom within 100 attempts. Watching the contemplative master, Rizeldrak approached. Receiving the affectionate pat from the young man who wished to go back in time, confident, Ji-hun held the little dragon, who began to play in the rain, silently asking, "Just wait a little longer. When I return, this will be your end." Just as the first wave ended with the humans' victory, annihilating the monsters, with the contemplative Lib looking toward the horizon, Ji-hun swore, while being watched by a being deep within the dark forest. From the mountain where he stood, Ji-hun observed the kingdom and the castle where his journey had begun. Then, turning around, he faced the great dark forest, the place where he would be from now on. Thinking about the monster faction, he wondered what might lie ahead. There was no such route in night defense, so he didn't know what would happen. Kim Ji-hun had already restarted the game hundreds of times trying to survive all 100 waves. Thanks to that, he knew the kingdom's power like the back of his hand. However, the forest beneath the mountain was not the kingdom. From here on, he would be facing a new beginning, completely from scratch. Before entering the forest, Ji-hun remembered something important. Rizeldrak, the little dragon, was also with him. Curiously, Rizeldrak flew toward the dark forest, leaving Ji-hun behind. Following the little dragon, the protagonist came across a trail of ants. The dragon stopped in front of the ants, who trembled in fear upon seeing him, but the little dragon just stopped and sat on the ground, watching them curiously. Watching the dragon, Ji-hun increasingly felt that he resembled a cat and acted like one. Putting that aside, the protagonist wondered what he should do now. Letting Rizeldrak follow his curiosity about the ants, Ji-hun waited for something else to appear and soon saw the notification window appear once again. The second main mission appeared: stabilize the monster faction, unite all monsters, and create a faction. As a reward, he would receive a random skill. Thinking about how he could complete the mission, the protagonist wondered if he would need to recruit the monsters himself. Monsters typically found at the beginning of the game, like goblins, had low intelligence, so he didn't think he could do much. Despite that, not even goblins were in sight. Ji-hun tried looking around, but not a single rat appeared. He didn't know how he would talk to monsters if he hadn't found any. While Ji-hun was lost in thought, a shadow crossed the forest. Hearing a noise, Ji-hun looked surprised toward the trees, and before he could realize, an attack came his way from a woman who shouted fiercely, "Accept your end, human!" Ji-hun saw the attack heading for him, but unexpectedly it stopped a few centimeters from his neck, releasing only a powerful gust of wind against him. The grass on the ground swayed strongly under the wind, then stabilized again. Ji-hun had closed his eyes out of fear but slowly opened them when he realized he hadn't been hit. Surprised that the attack had stopped, he still saw sharp claws in front of his neck. However, something surprised him even more. Long hair fluttered in the air, for in front of him was a beast woman. "Are you a rabbit?" Irritated, the beast woman shook her ears and growled, "Do I look like a cute bunny to you? If you look closely, my ears are fox ears." The protagonist tried to correct himself, saying he hadn't called her cute, but cutely irritated, she pointed to her own ears. "You did say it! You said it! I heard it loud and clear!" Observing the white fox, Kim Ji-hun analyzed her until he reached a conclusion, revealing, "Ah, you're an Arctic fox." The foxwoman approached Ji-hun, sniffing him. She sniffed him for several minutes, his legs, arms, back, circling him continuously, analyzing Ji-hun's scent to understand more about him. After a dose of sniffing, the Arctic fox raised an eyebrow, confused. "This is very strange. He clearly looks like a human, but why does he smell like a monster?" Confused, Ji-hun repeated her last words, questioning. To unravel the mystery, he looked at himself, discovering through a notification that 2 passive skills had been permanently activated. The first passive was monster communication. It allowed him to communicate with other monsters. The second passive was sympathetic monster. He would have an inexplicable sympathy for monsters. Reading the passives, he understood why he could talk to the beast woman. Seeing the human with a monster's scent talking to himself again, the fox woman frowned, irritated at being ignored. She then pointed a finger at him, questioning, "You! Who are you?" Faced with an extremely sharp claw, Kim Ji-hun trembled in fear, trying to find an excuse to explain himself. While stammering, Ji-hun tried to look again at his passive skills. He hadn't expected to be in this situation, since the sympathetic monster skill was supposed to attract monsters' affection. Suddenly, amid the confusion, something passed before Kim Ji-hun's eyes. He only noticed the attack when red liquid splattered after an arrow hit its target. From the forest, a group of 3 men appeared, a muscular one, a disinterested one, and a short, bald, smiling one. Carrying a hand crossbow, the short one celebrated, "We finally got one." The arrow shot was connected to a rope in that man's hand, which left Ji-hun confused. Were there people outside the royal palace? Is this some kind of bandit group? Gritting her teeth, the fox girl cursed. "I knew it, you're a human." With a wounded leg, she fell to the ground, furious at Ji-hun. "You set a trap. You're hunting us? What do you want?" Surprised, Ji-hun tried to explain, "No, it's not like that. It's all a misunderstanding." While the protagonist spoke with the fox girl, the short man passed the rope to the muscular one beside him. He violently pulled the rope, and with it, the fox girl who was tied to the arrow. With the strength he had, the man pulled the fox girl, preparing to attack her as soon as she got close enough. The The fox woman was scared to see his intent but couldn't dodge. Kim Ji-hun was shocked to see what was happening. With all his strength, the man struck the fox woman, leaving no chance for evasion. He smiled, malicious and confident, but the expected result did not happen. Even having been hit, the fox woman kept a brave look on her face. She spun her body, kicking with her free leg in a counterattack. This time it was the muscular man who had no time to dodge. He could only see the leg approaching his face. In the next instant, he was thrown to the ground by the powerful kick he suffered. The bald, short man gritted his teeth in shock and fury at what had happened, although the third group member didn't even care. Watching the scene, Ji-hun asked surprised, "That guy was knocked down with just one kick?" Despite having knocked down the most muscular one in the group, the fox girl with a swollen leg fell to the ground. Irritated, the bald man with the hand crossbow approached her, cursing, "That damn beast dared to kick a human!" Furious, he returned the kicks she had thrown at his partner while cursing her. Faced with such a scene, Ji-hun felt something was wrong. He didn't believe she should be hunted by humans just for being a monster. Amid his anger, he saw the third group member approach him. The disinterested man, while chewing a plant, asked, "You okay, man? Things could have gone bad for you. This area is full of beastmen. What are you doing here alone?" Faced with the question, Ji-hun was left speechless. He looked ahead, seeing the fox girl growl in feral language. The bald, short man, not understanding what she said, became furious. He raised a club, growling, "Are you trying to talk nonsense, you damn beast?" A fury appeared in Ji-hun's eyes. However, at the same time, the man who had been disinterested in his own group opened his mouth to stop the bald man. "Enough. She won't make it out alive like this." The bald, short man stopped his attack halfway, apologizing hurriedly. "Sorry, I got carried away again." The protagonist sighed, seeing they had stopped attacking the fox girl, but the man beside him hadn't ended the matter. He looked at Ji-hun, showing all his teeth maliciously and questioning. "Hey man, you were talking to that beast just now, weren't you?" Ji-hun felt a sharp pain in his belly, and looking down, found a blade in that man's hand. Dropping the blade, the man smiled, stating, "If we had known someone like you was here, we wouldn't have had all that trouble." The blade fell to the ground while Ji-hun quickly pressed his own belly, gritting his teeth, not understanding why he had been attacked. Even the fox woman was surprised by the sudden attack. Kim Ji-hun felt a strong bitterness in his mouth. His whole body burned inside. That was poison. The disinterested man put his hand in his shirt pocket while commenting, "Don't worry, I avoided the vital points, but you only have 12 hours. Affected by the poison, Ji-hun coughed violently, expelling a thick liquid. While wiping his stained lips, he looked up and saw the man carrying a small vial, revealing, "This is the antidote. If you want to survive, translate for us." The muscular man who had recovered lifted the beast woman, and while everyone gathered, the man with the antidote ordered, "Find out where the fox's den is located." Looking at the now captured fox woman, the protagonist repeated the request, still confused. Meanwhile, the little dragon, Rizeldrak, who had gone to hunt ants, returned. Kim Ji-hun was confused when he heard about the fox's den, and soon the man who attacked him explained, "That's just a rude name we used to call the place where they live. Anyway, there's a village where beastmen live. If you help us find it, you will live." Simple as that. Gritting his teeth, Ji-hun asked why they wanted to find that village. Weakly, the foxwoman spoke to Ji-hun. "If you take them to the village, everyone will be in danger." Suddenly, she opened her mouth, stuck out her tongue, and before Ji-hun's eyes, she closed it, biting down with her sharp teeth. The foxwoman ended up biting the hand of the muscular man who was holding her, and he acted quickly. Ji-hun understood what she wanted to do, cut her own tongue to protect the village. The big guy was furious with the foxwoman. His hand was pierced by her teeth, turning red with blood. The careless man sighed, commenting, "All the half-foxes we catch don't last a day. How are we going to find their den like this?" Irritated, the muscular man launched an attack, making the foxwoman cough heavily and pull her fangs out of his hand. The fox was handed over to the group leader, who added to the previous comment, "These creatures don't value their own lives." Immediately, he ordered 2 subordinates to fall back and watch the surroundings in case there were more beastmen in the area. Ji-hun knew foxes as clever animals. Even if they didn't understand human language, they could sense danger. Left alone with Kim Ji-hun and the foxwoman, the group leader asked, "Translate for us, companion. Guide us to the fox's den. We'll take what we want and leave right after. So relax." Frowning, Ji-hun asked what they were going to take. With a slight smile, the man revealed, "Our boss lost something. We will find it, and then you and the beastmen will be left alive." Staring into that man's eyes, Ji-hun caught the same gleam he had seen in those who stole his money. Behind that look was a lie. However, in Ji-hun's situation, not even the lie mattered. He wanted to have what he wanted. He wanted at least to be useful. Kim Ji-hun's last hope in that situation was that he would not be eliminated by the group. Determined to do everything not to perish yet, he stepped forward. Walking up to the foxwoman, he said, "Take these people to the village, then no one will get hurt." The foxwoman, however, remained silent. Curious, the muscular man asked, "Can he really speak the monster's language like you said, boss?" After some silence, the young fox opened her mouth. You seem different from other humans. Maybe I was too cautious, but more than 100 beastmen live in that village. Can I trust your words that no one will get hurt? Shocked. This time it was Ji-hun who went silent. He ended up looking away and murmured to the foxwoman, I'm not on humanity's side, you can trust me. These people are evil. Ji-hun suddenly stopped talking to the foxwoman, looking up with his mouth open. An angry shadow had appeared behind the mercenary group leader, the little dragon, Rizal. As the dragon opened his mouth, preparing his dragon breath attack, the group leader, unaware of what was happening behind him, asked, Why did you stop translating? Stammering, not knowing how to continue, Ji-hun faced Rizal. The dragon was gathering more and more energy in his mouth, so Ji-hun needed to buy time. Watching the boy, the group leader frowned, wondering why his behavior had changed. At that moment, the bald man in the group who was watching the surroundings noticed a monster behind their leader. Looking closely, he saw the energy building up in front of the little flying monster's mouth. Hurriedly, he shouted, Boss, behind you, dodge! The uninterested man looked back and, surprised, saw a glow of energy before him. Knowing Rizal, Ji-hun knew it was already too late for the man to try to dodge. Afraid of the dragon's breath, the group leader's eyes widened as he murmured, Someone save me! Please spare me! Rizal unleashed his dragon breath, but instead of the powerful attack he had used at the castle, he once again only spat a little energy, which fell to the ground beside the man. The entire hillside fell into complete silence after the dragon's failed attack. Ji-hun, open-mouthed, felt extreme shame. The bandits, also open-mouthed, couldn't believe the broken expectation. And even Rizal himself, open-mouthed, was shocked for not having been able to attack again. Gritting his teeth, Ji-hun realized the dragon breath skill's cooldown time had not yet been fulfilled. On the ground, the grass where Rizal's attack had fallen turned to ashes. Seeing the ground melt, even without the monster using full force, the muscular man trembled with fear, because that blow could still seriously injure someone. Furious, the group leader grabbed a stick and shouted, I'm not married yet, you damn fly! He attacked the little dragon with all his strength. Kim Ji-hun was incredulous to see Rizal being hit. The poor dragon was thrown far away, falling heavily to the ground. Dizzy, Rizal seemed to faint. Irritated, the man bit his lip. How dare that thing try to melt me? Surprised and confused as he approached Rizal, the bald man asked, Boss, we've never seen a monster like this. What do we do? It must be worth a high price if we capture it. To Ji-hun's surprise, the man answered unexpectedly, I don't need that. Walking over to the dragon, he snorted, How dare he ambush me? I'll deal with him personally. You two keep an eye on them. Rizal, unconscious, was unaware he was in danger. Fury filled Ji-hun's heart, who mocked himself. Just because I can talk to monsters, do I think I can survive? Even here, I keep evaluating my worth pathetically, like in my previous life. That's why, even knowing this world's future, I remain weak. Remembering how weak he had been in his past life, even in his last moments, Ji-hun felt a deep desire to do everything he could to not regret losing anything more. With an extremely furious look, the bandit leader raised his stick, putting all his strength into his arm. The foxwoman didn't notice when Ji-hun passed by her. Walking toward the man, Ji-hun was going to show exactly who was useless. Possessing a passive skill, monstrous physicality that transcended human strength, he moved. Before the man with the stick could realize, a fist was already in front of his face. With Ji-hun's punch, the man disappeared from where he was, tearing the ground as he was dragged, lifting stones and gravel, while spilling the antidote potion into the air. The foxwoman was shocked to see the scene, as were the man's henchmen. They worried about their boss, who, fallen to the ground, had one side of his face completely swollen in total confusion. Standing where he had delivered the blow, Kim Ji-hun looked down with a dark expression. The vial with the antidote had fallen to the ground, spilling its liquid into the dirt, wasting it. The foxwoman, observing Kim Ji-hun, was confused. Moments before, she had seen in his eyes the suffering caused by the poisoned blade and couldn't understand how he was moving so well. Surprised, she saw the young man move again. In silence, Kim Ji-hun crouched down, picking up Rizaldrak in his arms. The protagonist held the little dragon carefully, aware of his intentions. Rizaldrak, you came here to save me, didn't you? Weakly, the dragon tried to smile, despite the pain he also felt. Ji-hun observed the little dragon's dirty face, as well as his smile, and smiling the same way said, leaving Rizal curious, You remind me of that child. With Ruru in his mind and the moments they spent together, Ji-hun said, She was always by my side, giving me strength and making me smile in difficult times. She was my only true friend I could count on. Curious, Rizaldrak opened his eyes, staring at the melancholic young man. With a smile, even if weak, Ji-hun made a lifelong promise. I will protect you no matter what. Despite having defeated the leader of that group of hunters, Ji-hun still had problems to face. The muscular man put the boss on his own back, while the bald man growled, You bastard! Do you have any idea who our boss is? If the boss finds out about this, you're done for. Faced with the threatening words, Ji-hun looked coldly at the three with a frightening shadow in his eyes. Seeing the boy's dark aura, both the bald man and the muscular man took a step back, sweating with fear. They immediately fled, running into the forest while shouting, "Just wait and you'll see." After the victory, Rizeldrak recovered, stood up, celebrating with a small roar. However, another person was no longer standing. Before Rizel could realize, Kim Ji-hun collapsed like a felled tree. The young man fell to the ground with all his weight, catching everyone by surprise. The fox woman, who was already surprised to see him walking, was even more surprised to see him fall. Little Rizel, worried and confused, hurriedly circled Ji-hun, trying to wake him up, pushing him with his cute little paws. Maintaining a trace of consciousness, Ji-hun wondered if this would be his end. Having the worried face of Rizel as the last thing he saw before fainting, he asked himself, "What will happen if I don't survive?" In his dreams, Kim Ji-hun saw himself in a hospital room beside his mother's bedside. A mixture of sadness and fury overflowed within him, directed at the bastard who didn't even come to see her. Sometime later, Ji-hun unexpectedly woke up, slowly opening his eyes. Wondering where he was, he began to take in the surroundings. Stone walls and ceiling. Worried about him, the foxwoman carrying him said, "You shouldn't move." Weak, realizing he was being carried on her back, the protagonist asked why she had saved him. Silently, she continued carrying him through the cave. Sometime later, after passing through the cave, the pair arrived at a valley between mountains. As soon as they arrived, they heard a voice. "Rhea is back! She brought a human with her!" Several beast women with rabbit ears quickly approached. They all stopped to observe the human who was left resting, and one of them dared to say, "He really looks like a human, but something about him seems different." Blushing slightly, another commented, "For some reason, I find him likable." The group of rabbit women watched Kim Ji-hun through the window attentively, and after counting the hours, believing the poison had been neutralized, wondered when he would wake up. What they didn't know was that Ji-hun had been awake for a long time. He was just pretending to sleep out of embarrassment at being watched. With everyone looking at him like that, he even blushed. Interrupting the curiosity of the rabbit women and children, the foxwoman who had saved him, Rhea, clapped her hands to get attention. "Everyone, could you please give us some space? Our guest won't be able to rest comfortably if you keep making noise." Upon seeing Rhea, many of those beast people asked if the human had really saved the girl, but asking to leave questions for later, she approached the wooden house. Ji-hun, attentive, heard the foxwoman's voice and recognized her. The fox girl entered the house with arms crossed, staring at Ji-hun, who was pretending to sleep, and asked, "You're awake, aren't you?" Silently, Ji-hun turned his face to look at her. Having cleared everyone from the wooden house with a thatched roof, Rhea said, "You'll have to forgive them. You look human, but this is the first time they've seen a human who doesn't smell like one." Sitting on the bed and scratching his head, the protagonist felt that his identity was somewhat uncertain thanks to the young fox's words. Now seated and looking at his own hands, Ji-hun commented that he felt the poison's effect had disappeared. Rhea revealed the reason. "You were lucky. We had the antidote for it here in the village." Ji-hun was surprised to hear where he was. He remembered how the foxwoman herself had refused to take them to the village because if she did, everyone would be in danger, and she even tried to cut off her own tongue to avoid being used. Faced with these memories, Ji-hun asked her why she had taken him there, and she replied, "I told you. It's because you're a human, but you don't smell like one." Curious, Kim Ji-hun asked if that was really the only reason. There was another reason Rhea didn't reveal. She had taken him to the village because she saw the feeling that connected him to a monster. Confused, the protagonist thought aloud, "Bringing me to the village, and even giving me an antidote. I guess that's the effect of a friendly monster?" Hearing the human murmur, the foxwoman got irritated. She turned around growling, "Why are you talking so much? You're annoying even after I saved you." Rizel, who was sleeping on a table nearby, woke up with Rhea's shouts. Upon opening his eyes, the little dragon saw an apology. The fox girl stepped back when she saw Ji-hun lower his head, asking him to stop. "You don't have to go that far." Blushing slightly, Rhea turned away, clearing her throat to remind the human that he had saved her too, so they were even. While still talking to the foxwoman, Ji-hun heard a soft cry and looked to the side. Little Rizeldrak, excited to see his master, jumped happily into his arms. Human and dragon rubbed their faces against each other lovingly. Rhea, who heard Ji-hun call the dragon Rizeldrak, grew curious and stopped to think. Putting her hand on her chin, she said aloud, "Come to think of it, we still don't know each other's names, do we? Since fate brought us here, we should at least introduce ourselves." Just as Rhea was about to introduce herself for the first time, a rabbit woman opened the door of the wooden house, shouting, "Rhea, the village chief is looking for you. He said for you to come with the visitor." Ji-hun looked at the rabbit woman at the door, learning the name of the woman he saved, and who saved him in return. Despite the unexpected turn of events in that wooden house, the pair headed to meet the village chief. Leaving the wooden house, Ji-hun was enchanted by the surroundings. The Beastman's village. Inside the mountain range was a small lake. and on the shore's beach, several wooden houses with thatched roofs appeared among the trees. Rhea introduced the place to Jihun. This is the village built by the rabbit beastmen, but now, beastmen who lost their own villages are gathering here. We all live together. As they walked, Rhea and Jihun passed a garden where a rabbit woman harvesting carrots asked, "Rhea, how's your leg?" Rhea quickly answered she was fine, thanking them for asking. Sometime later, a large bullman carrying several logs on his shoulder also approached Rhea. "Rhea, I heard you went to the forest where humans pass again." Rolling her eyes at everyone wanting to talk to her, Rhea coldly replied she would be more careful. Walking beside Rhea, Jihun ended up attracting everyone's attention. Excited and unaware of the foxwoman's uneasy look, Jihun commented, "Everyone in the village seems to care about you, Rhea." However, hearing her monotonous reply, Jihun tried to investigate what had happened. "You've seemed down for a while." Rhea had been waiting a long time for him to ask. Irritated, she shouted, "Hey, is your name Hey or something? Because you only respond when I call you that." Snorting, Rhea put her hands on her hips after revealing her frustration. Finally, Jihun realized what he had forgotten to do. Scratching his head while smiling awkwardly, he revealed his identity. "My name is Jihun, Kim Ji-hoon. I think that's a pretty uncommon name around here, isn't it?" Faced with his shyness, Jihun heard Rhea properly introduce herself. "Rhea Rindrian Perditi Ceciliad." Turning away, Rhea refused to look at Jihun, stating that was her name. As she turned, she came across a little rabbit who asked if her leg was okay. Bending down to be at the same level as the rabbit, Rhea wagged her tail, smiling. "I got treatment earlier, so it's much better now. By the way, where does your tunnel connect?" After hearing a truly uncommon name, Jihun observed its owner, who seemed suddenly cheerful. He felt she just wanted to reveal her own name. Jihun ended up looking around the whole village and remembered his main mission, to unite the monsters and create a faction. Amid his thoughts, Jihun heard Rhea calling him. She waved at him happily. "Hey, what are you doing? Come on, I told you we were going to see the village chief." Seeing the fox girl keep calling him "Hey," Jihun wondered why she had asked his name if she would keep calling him that. Hurriedly, Jihun ran after the foxwoman who urged him to move faster. Thinking about the mission to unite the monsters and create a faction, Jihun wondered if he would really be able to accomplish it. It was then that after a brief conversation with the village chief, a rabbit man with a beard and gray hair, Jihun heard, "From now on, I will leave the village in your hands." Not only Kim Jihun, but even Rhea was shocked to hear the tribe chief's intention. Rhea hurriedly tried to convince the tribe chief to reconsider, but turning to leave with her crutch, the chief said, resting his hands on his back, "I'm getting old. Someone needs to take care of the village." Still surprised, Jihun said he knew nothing about the village. Rhea tried to convince him once more. "Just because you had a dream doesn't mean you can entrust the village to him, who just arrived here. Does that make any sense?" Smiling, the old man replied, "In my mind, there is plenty of sense. Ho ho ho." Rhea ran after the village chief, asking him to reconsider, but the old rabbit had already made his decision. The protagonist kept staring at the elder's back, reflecting on what he had said earlier. When meeting with Rhea and Jihun, the tribe chief revealed that he often had peculiar dreams, and unexpectedly, those dreams tended to come true. He looked at the young human and declared, "The one who will save our village will be you, and only you." Hearing the old rabbit's words, Jihun remembered his mission to build the monster faction, and wondered if the tribe chief's dream was related to that. However, something worried him. If the elder said he should save the tribe, that meant something bad was about to happen. It was then that Jihun remembered the bandit leader's words. Their boss had lost something that should be in the beastman's village. A worried look appeared on Jihun's face after recalling everything that had happened in the last few minutes. He immediately called Rhea. Worried, he asked, "When we came here, you weren't followed, were you?" Calm, Rhea revealed how to get to the village. Warren is a village hidden among rocky mountains. It has never been discovered by anyone until now. The foxwoman explained that the reason no one had found the village was that behind the mountains lay the vast ocean. No one dared to cross them or felt the need to do so. She also said the only way to enter Warren was through a tunnel dug by the rabbits. Even if someone found it, the internal structure was so interconnected like a labyrinth that finding the right path to the village would be practically impossible. Rhea claimed she hadn't noticed anything strange when passing through the tunnels. Jihun felt a little relieved, but a bad feeling still lingered. Rhea had been careful, but she forgot one detail, her injured leg. In the labyrinths created by the rabbits, a small trail of blood drops formed a path, and at the end of that path, at the entrance to the village Warren, a human smiled maliciously. Finding the village, he murmured with a wicked smile, "I found you." In the valley between mountains where the rabbit village was located, sudden alarm cries rang out. "It's a human! A human! A human has infiltrated Warren!" The alarm cries caught the attention of Jihun and Rhea. The bullman who had spoken to Rhea earlier captured the bald old man who had attacked Rhea and Jihun before, tying him up. Furious, he roared in the monster language, while several other rabbit men and women watched fearfully. Ji-hun and Rhea followed the bullman's voice. Seeing the bald man, Ji-hun questioned, "So you tracked us here?" The bullman answered for the human. "He followed the trail of Rhea's wounds." The foxwoman was shocked, unable to believe she had been tracked all along despite being so careful. The injured young fox apologized to everyone, but no one blamed her for what had happened. The bullman spoke on behalf of everyone present. "You don't need to blame yourself. Carrying a human here with those wounds must have taken a lot out of you. Now that we have captured the intruder, we just need to erase the trail, and then all problems will be solved." The rabbit women also supported Rhea. No one blamed her. Everyone stood by her side. Frowning, the protagonist remembered. Wait a minute. There were 3 bandits. Where are the other 2? Rejoicing, the bald man roared, "Stupid beasts! Soon this whole place will burn in flames." With a manic smile, he revealed his identity and that of his group. "We are part of a bandit group that even the kingdom gave up on capturing, and we have the first and only Screaming Piercer as our boss. He will be here any minute, leading over 200 of our brothers." The crazed shouts of the bandit echoed throughout the village, frightening those nearby as well as those far away. Frowning, Ji-hun murmured, "Screaming Piercer." In a cave serving as a hideout somewhere in the mountains, the leader of the hunter trio, helped by the muscular man, was heading to fulfill his mission. He bit his lips hard, then shouted bravely, "Boss, no, Big Brother, that guy hit me. Get him for me." The man called Big Brother, who had 2 horns on his cloak, remained silent. The leader of the hunter trio shouted, his face swollen, "I found the fox's den they used to come and go. I'll show the way." The man sitting on the stone wore animal leather clothes and cloaks, decorated with various hunting ornaments. Maliciously, he smiled. "Very well, little brother. We're going to the lair right now." Hearing the leader's words, Big Brother smiled happily, as he would get his revenge. At the same time, the bald old man told the beastmen, "I wasn't the only one who got here. All of this was part of the boss's plan." Some time ago, during the escape, the carried man shouted to stop running. The bald man and the muscular man wanted to give the leader of the trio a beating, but he confidently said, "It's not time to return to the hideout yet. This is our moment." With that, they returned to watch the foxwoman and the human suffering from the poison. Having told how they found the beastmen's village, he laughed. "Soon you will all become a doormat." Still incredulous, Rhea asked, "What is he talking about?" She hurriedly looked at Ji-hun, who had a serious expression. The protagonist was cold as he confirmed what was happening. The bandits already knew the village's location and would arrive any moment. Upon hearing this, even Ji-hun, Rhea Rindrian, fell into incredulous denial. Ji-hun remembered who the Screaming Piercer was, a somehow familiar name. In Knight Defense, it was possible to gain experience by fighting waves of monsters attacking the kingdom, thus leveling up knights who would become stronger. However, leveling up like that wasn't enough to survive all waves. Therefore, the game had another system, that of adventurers. It was possible to choose knights to send on missions and clear stages. Clearing these stages would provide various items, such as equipment and gold. These stages started at level 1 of the first phase, Remnants of Wild Goblins, and went up to level 10 of the 10th phase, the Dark Lord's Fortress, totaling 10 stages. Ji-hun didn't remember the name of each stage, but vaguely recalled the final parts of Stage 1, Phase 10. It was located in the Screaming Piercer's hideout, a village hidden behind a rocky wall. Thinking a bit more, Ji-hun remembered each stage had a small backstory. He didn't read them all, but one thing was certain. He had never seen a stage called Warren in that place. According to the game's story, that place, that village was doomed to be destroyed. Smiling maliciously, the bald man spoke again. "Let me make one last offer. Whoever lets me go, I will ask the boss to spare him." He tried to stand, making an offer that would cause discord among the beastmen. Although the beastmen didn't understand what he was saying, his words were already spreading. Reaching everyone's ears, the beastmen began to worry, and the echo of fear started to spread. Rhea lowered her head, blaming herself again. "Because of me, Warren. Our village. It's all because of me." Ji-hun became worried, because if nothing was done, the beastmen would be wiped out, and Warren would become the bandits' new base. Furious, the bald man started shouting, "I said untie me!" But Ji-hun wouldn't let their plan succeed. He wouldn't let this become the Screaming Piercer's base. Ji-hun began walking toward the shouting bald man, keeping a grim look. His ultimate goal was one, to make that beastmen's village the monster faction's center. Seeing the human boy he had met earlier, the bald old man was relieved. "Hey, you showed up just in time. Hurry up and translate for me." Ji-hun clenched his fist, as strong as the fortress he would build in that place, hitting the shiny bald head which, like a bowling ball, hit the ground. The bull man stood still, seeing the young man suddenly attack the other human. Even the rabbit men were left speechless. Rhea put her hands over her mouth, hiding her surprise at Ji-hun's attack. Leaving the bald man toothless, Ji-hun shouted, "I've heard enough of this nonsense." Looking at all the beastmen, he summoned them. "Let's fight. We have to protect Warren no matter what." Even Rhea, who had brought the young human there only a few hours ago, was shocked by his attitude. The bullman, however, thought it would be impossible. Standing beside Ji-hun, he asked the young man to look around. "We built this village hidden behind the rocky mountain because we are weak." Women and children made up most of the village members. These were people who had never fought a real battle in their lives, much less against a gang. When everyone seemed sad, the village chief approached, laughing. "You've always been a smart one, haven't you?" With everyone gathered, the village chief announced, "From today, Ji-hun will be the new chief of Warren." Unexpectedly, he conveyed to everyone what he had already told Rhea. At the same time, several humans wearing boots and leather clothes followed the path indicated by those who had found the fox's den. Moving forward along the indicated path, the piercer asked, "Is this the place?" Excited, the leader of the bandit trio smiled. "That's right. Just keep going, boss." Seeing the mountain on the other side of the forest, the little hunter said, "There's a village hidden behind that rock wall." Liking the location, the gang leader announced, "Let's go take this place. This will be the new base of the Screaming Piercers gang." Excitedly, the whole gang followed the leader, raising their swords, axes, and knives, ready to eliminate everything in their path. Ji-hun met with the bullman, who noted, "The bandits' strength is estimated at 200 members. In comparison, Warren's battle strength, including me, is 3 bullmen." Writing on a paper, he counted the others. "Besides us, there are also 2 deer men, 5 sheep, 1 fox woman, and finally 101 rabbit men. In total, there are 112 members capable of fighting." Counting all the troops, the bullman asked Ji-hun if there was a chance of victory. Thinking they would be against double the number they had, the protagonist tried to find a way to fight. This wouldn't be an ordinary battle. In games, what really matters isn't the number of individuals, but the stats of each individual, their ranks and levels. Rhea might have been ambushed earlier, but she still took down a hunter with a single attack. Ji-hun imagined that although a 3-against-1 fight would be difficult for Rhea, she could easily win against 2 opponents. The bullman had said the beastmen had never fought before. However, Ji-hun thought that despite that, he might be underestimating such beings with a feral form. Their power might not be as weak as they thought. Ji-hun imagined that if everyone had strength on the same level as Rhea, the numbers problem could be overcome. Ji-hun then turned, "Hey, bull!" And immediately the bullman corrected him. "My name is Tower Brimlock." Ji-hun changed his phrase. "Tower, based on Warren's numbers, where would you rank Rhea in terms of strength?" Ji-hun excitedly thought this initial mission couldn't be so impossible. He waited for Tower's answer, who pondered how to describe Rhea. They looked at the foxwoman, who was currently playing with a small little dragon. Ji-hun unexpectedly heard the answer he didn't want. "She is the strongest warrior in Warren. Even if everyone in Warren gathered to attack her, Rhea would still defeat them all." Faced with Tower's words, Ji-hun saw his dark and difficult mission ahead. Ji-hun's soul left his body, because that meant that if everyone together couldn't defeat her, they were practically useless. While they were talking, Rhea revealed that she expected the humans to arrive only at nightfall at the cave entrance, which made Ji-hun a bit more relieved since they had some extra time. However, the protagonist was still confused about how she had discovered this. Rhea ended up pointing to the bald man tied to a tree. His face, swollen like a bowling ball, showed that the foxwoman had forced him to talk. Seeing what she had done, Ji-hun commented, "As expected from Warren's best warrior." Pausing to think about what the lazy man had said, Ji-hun knew their leader had lost something. So he asked Rhea if she had any idea what it could be. He suggested it should be something precious, maybe passed down through generations, or some mineral resource hidden in Warren. Rhea showed the small village where the beastmen lived after losing their homes. There was nothing the humans could collect in that place. Frowning, Ji-hun ended up believing the humans just wanted an excuse to attack the beastmen. Tower, interrupting the conversation, asked Ji-hun, "Village chief, what do we do now? Everyone is waiting." Faced with Tower's question, Ji-hun became thoughtful. To overcome the numerical disadvantage, individuals with high stats and ranks were necessary. The strongest in Warren was the foxwoman Rhea, and below her were 111 beastmen who couldn't even defeat her, even if they attacked together. Still, the question remained, could Rhea defeat 111 people? Ji-hun didn't know if the rabbits were weak or if Rhea was very strong. She would at least like to see their exact ranks and stats, like in games, to compare and get an idea. Amid Ji-hun's thoughts, he realized he had forgotten something. He possessed the ability Sovereign's Eye, a skill he could use to access monster and item stats, but he didn't know exactly how to use that ability. Thinking about other virtual games, Ji-hun remembered that protagonists usually said the word status to open the stats window. Extending his hand, he did the same, shouting, "Status!" However, nothing appeared before him, making the atmosphere a bit awkward. Frustration and shyness appeared in Ji-hun's eyes at his failure. He really thought it would work, since when he said the word inventory last time, an inventory actually appeared. Trying to use inventory again, a window opened before him. As expected, that inventory was completely empty. However, something there caught Kim Ji-hun's attention. Instead of inventory, it was named Abyss Slot. Apparently, since he was in the monster faction, even the inventory's name had changed. With every passing moment, Ji-hun remembered more important things. He recalled that when escaping the palace, he had forgotten some things because relentless, untimely events happened. Ji-hun had forgotten his sword, the item he obtained from the chest. The sword was in the castle when all the chaos happened. The protagonist gritted his teeth and bit his lips because due to the castle's collapse, he ended up leaving the sword behind in the middle of the kingdom. He blamed the damn game for not returning the sword to his inventory automatically. However, Ji-hun could no longer go to the kingdom to retrieve his sword. Although regrettable, there was nothing he could do now. Putting all that aside, Ji-hun still wondered why the inventory hadn't appeared. He wondered if there was another method for that. So far, he had learned 4 passive skills. The first, Sovereign's Eye. The second, Monster Communication. The third, Friendly Monster. And lastly, Monstrous Physique. Except for Sovereign's Eye, the other passive skills seemed to remain active since their first use. Seeing Ji-hun thinking endlessly, Rhea became nervous and scolded him. "How long are you going to keep thinking? I need to do something quickly, the enemies keep approaching." The foxwoman lowered her head, her ears drooping, reinforcing the frustration in her voice. "Please, give me some instructions. This happened because of me. I want to protect Warren. I want to protect the villagers." Ji-hun stared at the girl who felt guilty about the situation and remembered time was urgent, precious. He quickly put aside his obsession with the stats window and checking stats. One of his eyes immediately created a magic circle as he looked at the foxwoman in front of him. Ji-hun, without even realizing it, designated Rhea as the target of Sovereign's Eye. Before he could think further, a red holographic window appeared before him. That's when he realized that the inventory was a system function to check the items he possessed. That's why it only opened when he thought about it. But the Sovereign's Eye skill checked the stats of monsters and items. Thinking about it, Ji-hun realized everything was much simpler than it seemed. To activate the passive skill Sovereign's Eye, he only needed to designate a target for the stats to be checked and think about their stats. Checking Rhea's stats, Ji-hun discovered she was rank B, something impressive. This brought some excitement to Ji-hun's eyes, since a rank B character would be on the same level as average knights. Rhea was a higher rank than he had imagined. Checking other information about Rhea, Ji-hun found out she was a water-type monster, close combat. Her stats were focused on attack power. Finally, Rhea's skill was bestial transformation, as Ji-hun had already guessed. Rhea approached Ji-hun, trying to look him in the eyes, although still downcast. "Ji-hun, I know you might be upset about becoming the village chief, but are you listening to me?" Paying little attention to her, focused on the stats window, Ji-hun replied monotonously, "Yes." Checking the stats, Ji-hun found a heart symbol with the number 40 next to it and wondered what it was. Ji-hun clicked the heart symbol out of curiosity. Unexpectedly, the number next to it began to change, dropping to 35. That's when Ji-hun realized what he was doing. His finger had pressed Rhea's nose, who, previously sad and worried, became tremendously angry. "I'm speaking sincerely in front of you, but you're joking? Are you really the one we trusted with Warren's fate as village chief?" Ji-hun quickly stepped back, trying to apologize. No, I didn't do it on purpose." However, the foxwoman didn't accept that lame excuse and jumped on him with claws and teeth. Ji-hun's scream echoed throughout the rabbit village. Sometime later, Rhea fled after punishing Ji-hun, allowing Tower to approach. Seeing the bull man, Ji-hun asked, "Tower, gather all the villagers here." Tower was about to ask why Ji-hun had scratch marks on his face when the young man reassured him, "I'm fine, please, ha ha ha." All 111 villagers lined up in front of Ji-hun, who checked their stats one by one. Finally, the last beastman, a sheep, stood before Ji-hun. The protagonist sighed, holding his forehead. Checking stats while looking at each person one by one really drained my stamina, including him and Rizeldrak. Warren's population reached 114. Among them, the highest rank was definitely Rizeldrak himself. Using Sovereign's Eye on his small summon, Ji-hun checked his stats. For an S-rank monster, Rizel's basic attack seemed very low, but everything was concentrated on his magic attack and magic defense, as well as his skill Dragon's Breath. The problem was that this skill consumed all mana points at once, and even after half a day had passed, only half of the little dragon's mana had recovered. This meant Rizel could only use one attack every 2 days, and in this battle, Dragon's Breath couldn't be used. The strength Ji-hun had available now was a rank B, Rhea, and a rank C, Tar. All other members of Warren Village were incredibly rank E. Saying that, gathered, they couldn't defeat Rhea made sense now. Compared to Kingdom Knights, a rank D was a Knight Apprentice, and rank E didn't even exist in their rankings. Ji-hun didn't know the bandit's rank, but remembered that the difficulty of clearing level 10 of the first stage was around rank C. After checking everyone's rank and understanding the situation, Ji-hun stood up. The number of troops was 114 against 200. Moreover, in terms of troop quality, items, or any other factor, Warren was not ahead in any. Clenching his fist tightly, Ji-hun felt protecting Warren would be impossible. However, he reminded himself this wasn't a game. He was now facing reality. Many things could exist here, things that didn't appear in games. Imagining he could create variables, Ji-hun looked at the village entrance in the mountain. Determined, he announced, "Tower, I will tell you the strategy we will follow from now on." While Ji-hun prepared the plan with Tower, the bandit group continued crossing the forest toward the rocky mountain. Leading the group was the screaming piercer, with his coat full of horns. What they didn't know was that in the forest, some rabbits were hiding, watching their arrival. A pair of rabbits, hidden, nodded to each other. "Let's go back quickly and inform the village chief. These guys will arrive at the entrance soon." However, before they could do anything, one of them was hit. The young rabbit looked to the side, still incredulous at what had happened to her brother. With an angry look, after throwing a throwing knife, the gang leader questioned, "Do they know we're coming?" The young rabbit, her face stained red, still couldn't believe what she saw. She bit her lower lip, refusing to believe it, but made the right decision. Transforming into a rabbit, she ran quickly, fleeing from the bandits and entering the forest. The bandits were about to chase her when the gang leader raised his hand, ordering them to stop. That man who had led them there asked surprised, "Brother, no, boss. Are we going after them? You're going to let them go?" With a look mixing a malicious smile and a bandit's fury, the gang leader replied, "I'm not going to let them go. I'm going to infect them all." At the same time, inside the tunnels, Ji-hun hurriedly instructed, "Team 2, hurry up! Team 1, that way!" Before him, rabbits dug hurriedly, while bullmen carried pieces of wood and iron, and many others helped too. At that moment, the little rabbit arrived at the cave entrance. Her arrival caught Ji-hun's attention. Before entering, she jumped, shouting so even Tor could hear, "The humans!" Seeing the red marks on the rabbit's face, Rhea was surprised. Bravely, the little rabbit brought the news. "The humans are here!" Ji-hun unexpectedly began to tremble. However, remembering that he was the player who blocked 100 waves, he clenched his fist firmly. This would be his first defense in the monster faction, and that was why he wouldn't allow his defense to be broken. In a short time, the gang of bandits reached the entrance of the labyrinth. In front of the cave, the leader, screaming piercer, asked, "So this is the fox's den?" Next to him, the muscular man confirmed, holding a paper in his hand that indicated the way. Entering the cave, the gang leader shouted, "Let's finish this before the sun sets!" At a fork, Rhea and Ji-hun watched the gang start to enter. Worried, the fox asked, "Will the plan work?" Hiding beside her, Ji-hun warned that the beginning would be crucial for the operation to succeed. Unaware they were being watched, Furador's group advanced fearlessly. With a map, the muscular bandit headed towards a tunnel, commenting, "At this pace, we'll reach the village in 30 minutes. The gang leader found it strange that everything was so quiet, but confident. The man who had planned everything reassured him. "Those stupid bastards are probably shaking while hiding in the village right now." Irritated, he shouted, "That bastard who punched me, I'll deal with him personally." As they walked, the same man who had been hit earlier by Ji-hun noticed something strange with the ground. There was a sound coming from underneath. As soon as everyone stopped, unexpectedly, huge cracks appeared on the ground beneath their feet. Before the group could run, the ground collapsed, making the bandits fall, screaming desperately. The bandits at the back were not affected by the collapse and only saw the dust curtain fill the entire cave ahead. Furador had not fallen into the trap, even helping his younger brother by holding his arm. At the bottom of the crater, the various bandits who had fallen were injured from landing on logs and stones. The gang leader descended to the bottom of the pit, angry. "Those bastards set a trap!" He looked around. The trap had been made by digging holes in the ground, covering them with wooden planks, and then placing a layer of soil on top. When a certain weight was applied to the planks, the supports would collapse, making the victims fall into the hole. Frowning, the muscular man asked his partner, "When we came yesterday, were there traps like these here?" Imagining that other traps might also have been set, the duo realized it would be very dangerous. Seeing the gang leader move forward, one of the bandits tried to warn him, "There may be more traps." However, surprising everyone, the leader snorted. "Idiots!" Going to a corner of the cave, he unexpectedly lifted with one hand a rock bigger than his own body. As if it were made of styrofoam, he threw it forward. The big stone fell on a hidden trap, destroying it and surprising everyone. The group leader revealed how he knew where the trap was. "These are artificial tunnels dug into the stone mountain. The original ground should be solid rock." Looking at the path ahead, which changed the type of soil every few meters, he continued, "Even if they dug holes, covered them with wood, and then put layers of soil and stones on top, you can still notice the difference if you observe carefully." Following the gang leader's instructions, everyone stopped to analyze the terrain as he had indicated. They began to notice some areas had more gravel than others, and those were precisely the ones with traps, rudimentary tricks made by primitive species. Seeing such traps made the gang leader, who had a huge scar on his forehead, extremely satisfied because it proved something. Maybe carnivores would fall for this, but semi-human herbivores are weak. These traps prove their weakness. Ordering some men to stay behind to rescue the wounded, the gang leader commanded, "We will advance while avoiding the traps." From where she was, Rhea saw the bandits start to avoid them, becoming worried. However, Ji-hun was confident. Clenching his fist, he celebrated, "Just as planned." Surprised, Rhea asked if that was part of his plan. Ji-hun explained the reason. Digging through solid rock, even with demi-human strength enhancements, would take a long time, and perfectly hiding the holes was impossible in such a short time. With a smile, he revealed, "I figured those rushed traps wouldn't work more than once for anyone with half a brain." Seeing the bandits' group advance while avoiding the areas with disturbed gravel, he revealed the truth. There are only 2 deep pit traps. The rest are fake, just to buy time for the next phase. Making them worry about traps will slow their march by at least half. Hearing the full explanation of the first part of Ji-hun's plan, Rhea couldn't help but show her surprise. Now that they had confirmed the success of the first part, Ji-hun called her to go to the next location. Meanwhile, beside the labyrinth entrance, a digging sound became more evident. Soon, one of the walls began to crack. At the same time, unaware of what was happening, the gang continued advancing through the tunnels. Next to the captain, the muscular man guided him. "At the fork ahead, take the right path and you'll reach the destination." Looking for the fork, the group leader was confused. There wasn't just one fork ahead, but 3 different paths, something the duo who had passed earlier hadn't seen. In the midst of the confusion, the man who had lost the fight to Ji-hun pointed to some herbs. "I saw those herbs. They were on the left side, right, or on the right side?" Confused, the muscular man replied, "I think they were on the right side." However, the group leader didn't care about the different paths. "They may know about traps and fragile illusions, but that won't stop us." Understanding that the extra cave was only meant to buy time, the leader was undeterred. He imagined the beastmen were preparing something in the village and therefore needed to hurry to stop them. In front of the 3 tunnels, he declared, "Let's split into 3 groups and advance quickly." Brother Crane, the bandit who had lost to Ji-hun, took the left tunnel. The middle tunnel was assigned to the muscular man, Dump, and some henchmen. The group leader with the rest of the gang took the right path where the grasses were. Crane's group advanced quickly but soon found the path blocked, meaning they had chosen the wrong route and would need to go back. Dump, on the other hand, found light as he advanced through the cave. Immediately, he grabbed his hammer and ordered, "We must be on the right path. Everyone, prepare for battle." At the same moment, the gang leader, Screaming Piercer, with the rest of his men, also found the cave exit. He smiled maliciously. "To think I was the one who chose the right path. These guys really had no luck." Stretching his muscles, he ordered his gang, "Show no mercy. Finish them all." Furiously, Dump and his group advanced with hammers and swords raised. On the other side, Screaming Piercer did the same, but was soon surprised upon reaching the cave exit. Unexpectedly, he came face to face with the forest where it had all begun. Screaming Piercer had taken the tunnel made by the rabbit men, which went around the mountain and returned to the starting point. At the same time, the correct path revealed itself to be the one taken by Dump. As soon as he spotted the village, he raised his hand. "Hold position." Intelligently, Dump ordered a subordinate to return through the tunnel to inform the leader and vice leader which was the correct path. While observing the village terrain, one of Dump's subordinates pointed to a region. "Brother, look there!" To their surprise, they found Cargo, the bald man, tied to a tree. Dozens of bandits quickly advanced to the gagged old man, exclaiming with irritation and indignation, "Those bastard monsters! Cargo, are you okay?" Dump quickly removed the cloth from his friend's mouth, who hurriedly asked, "Where are the leader and vice leader?" He looked around, confused. "Why are our numbers so low? Only these remain?" Meanwhile, the only bandit sent by Dump to return was running hurriedly, but before he realized it, something hit his face. Receiving a kick from Rhea, he flew and crashed against one of the stone walls. Coughing heavily, he wouldn't be able to reveal anything yet. Ji-hun's final plan had worked, bringing confidence to him and Rhea. First, they had used fake traps to buy time, altering the terrain to create confusion. Such simple traps, however, would make the enemy underestimate them and divide their forces. Cargo, now free, shouted at Dump, "You divided into groups of 60? That's not enough, we are surrounded." Dump looked around and finally realized that what was once an advantage had now become a disadvantage. In the trees surrounding the village entrance, several beastmen were lurking. Now, it was a fight of 113 against 60. Ji-hun and Rhea soon appeared at the village entrance. As soon as he saw the group of 60 invaders, Ji-hun commanded, "All units, advance!" Immediately, all more than 100 members of the village, from rabbits, sheep, and bullmen, charged against the invaders. There, Ji-hun's true strategy began. As soon as he saw the beastmen, Dump Bradayu raised his large stone hammer. "Eliminate them all!" Under Dump's leadership, all 60 bandits advanced against the small, unarmed beastmen. Dump raised his axe against Little Rain, who faced him bravely. Just as the face-to-face clash was about to begin, Ji-hun shouted, "Now! All units use the beast transformation!" Dump's attack missed its target, who transformed into a small rabbit, hitting the ground and raising a curtain of dust. Shocked, Dump couldn't believe the beast girl had disappeared. A large smoke curtain quickly spread across the battlefield. When the beastmen transformed, smoke was produced. Ji-hun had noticed this earlier and believed they could use it as a strategy during the battle. He basically put into practice a smokescreen tactic. As the invading group was in the middle of the smoke, Ji-hun moved to the next step, making use of Tauros. The large bullman lifted a gigantic stone and, with furious eyes, ran towards the humans. Tauros threw the large stone, which, like a bowling ball, knocked the invaders away or crushed them. Some small rabbits also moved, attacking amid the smoke. One of the invaders was chosen as a target by the rabbits, who put their hands out of the ground to grab his legs. Frozen, the invader couldn't escape when two rabbits jumped toward him. The rabbits kicked his cheeks and, with the strong kick, knocked him unconscious. While the rabbits attacked from one side, deer with their antlers attacked from the other. One group of invaders, however, managed to target a sheep, kicking her repeatedly, but they soon realized the attacks caused no damage to her. The sheep, protected by her thick wool, felt no pain but still cried out of fear. On another side, several invaders were hit by small fireballs that burned their heads and arms as they fell from the sky. Rizeldrak attacked as best he could, causing minimal damage but at least disturbing the invaders' mentality. Kim Ji-hun, next to Rhea at the village entrance, observed the battle. With numerical superiority and surprise attacks using the smoke, they had managed to increase their advantage. Victory was definitely approaching. Soon, Ji-hun heard an irritated voice. "Who are you mocking?" The bald man named Cargo had obtained a hand crossbow with his subordinates, who also protected him. From where he was, Cargo tried to shoot arrows at the small rabbits hiding in the tunnels, avoiding the clubs of the other invaders. Seeing that side needed help, Ji-hun asked Rhea to assist them. Rhea seemingly disappeared, leaving only a trail of wind behind. The protagonist was surprised by the foxwoman's speed. Even with her injured leg, she ran quickly toward Cargo and his guards. Cargo immediately aimed an arrow at the foxwoman, intending to take her down first. The arrow was fired, whistling through the air toward Rhea. The young fox saw the arrow just centimeters from her eyes, but in the split second before being hit, she moved her body to the side, perfectly dodging it. Rhea put her hand on the ground, helping to change her body's direction. She spun her body and leg, preparing a heavy kick. Rhea's kick descended like a hammer on one of the invaders, who protected himself by raising his arms. Having successfully blocked the attack, he smiled maliciously. "Is that all you got?" The foxwoman moved quickly, returning to the ground. This time, with a high kick, she hit the invader's chin, lifting him off the ground. The invader lost consciousness, as well as several teeth from that attack. Rhea moved quickly, disappearing and reappearing in front of another of Cargo's guards. This time, with a knee strike, she made him fall to the ground. Soon, Cargo saw his two guards fall, one on each side of him, and growled, "What are you doing?" While still grinding his teeth angrily, he saw the foxwoman stand before him. When he looked to the side, by reflex, Cargo saw a foot. Rhea executed her move perfectly, hitting the hunter once again. With a swollen face and losing more teeth, Cargo no longer dared to speak. He couldn't, as he fainted along with his henchmen. Firmly, Rhea warned, "Don't underestimate us anymore." Dump, one of the last standing, saw how his subordinates had been captured or were being captured. He clenched his fist furiously. Grinding his teeth, he used an ability he hadn't used before. Unexpectedly, Dump's arm, the one he clenched, began to grow, his muscles swelling at a frightening speed. Ji-hun was surprised to see the muscular man using an ability. He didn't know exactly how monster abilities worked, but in Knight Defense, only rank C Knights or higher could use them. Dump, a rank C character, used the ability Body Strengthening. Growing in size, Dump's attack and defense increased by 50%. Dump walked toward the rabbits, who were stunned by his size. Furious, he growled at his own subordinates. "Pathetic idiots, losing to mere tiny monsters." But at that moment, an even larger shadow appeared above Dump, speaking the monster tongue. "Weakling!" A gigantic hand grabbed a tree, ripping it from the ground. Dump looked back and unexpectedly faced a bull man twice his height and with muscle circumference several times larger than his own. Dump's eyes turned white from surprise. The bullman's attack fell on the invader, creating a large shockwave that spread throughout the village. Feeling the wind created by the attack reach the village entrance, Ji-hun was left speechless. Inside the tunnels, Crane was waiting. After several minutes without response, he was already grinding his teeth, wondering how much longer he would have to wait. Crane's group had returned to the forks and questioned each other why none of the other two groups had returned yet. Sighing, he made a decision. "We don't need to worry about the leader, so let's take the path Dump took." While Crane decided to advance to check what Dump was doing, the latter and his group of 60 had been captured. All 60 invaders, along with cargo, were buried in the ground like a carrot plantation. The only difference was that they had been gagged, like mandrakes. After laughing at the situation, Ji-hun seriously asked Taros how many casualties they had suffered. With his notebook in hand, the bullman noted, 23 severely injured. They won't be able to fight. Another 42 had minor injuries and can continue fighting. A certain concern appeared in Ji-hun's eyes. That had been a fight of 113 against 60. Even with almost double the people, half of the village's forces were down, despite the operation's success. However, Ji-hun was confident they would not be defeated. Although the remaining enemies still outnumbered them, now, besides numerical superiority, by fighting smaller groups, the beastman's strength would increase. Ji-hun called the bullman, Taros, and commanded, "Quickly, distribute all the human weapons we just obtained to our troops." The beastmen began to take up human weapons, ranging from clubs, swords, and shields to heavy hammers. Both the minotaurs and the rabbits and sheep obtained battle gear. Kijun used the Sovereign's Eye, analyzing the strength of each one. Taor, at C rank, possessed an attack bonus of $177, whereas he originally had only $80. Much like him, the attack power of many others had easily more than doubled. Ji-hun stood agape. Such a development went far beyond his expectations. At that moment, human footsteps echoed through the tunnels. The group managed to reach the cave exit, but they found it strange that everything was so quiet. However, they soon spotted Dump's entire team, as well as cargoes, buried in the dirt with wooden stakes in their mouths. The sight terrified the group, but they quickly realized that everyone buried with their heads above ground was still alive. As the entire group walked toward those buried, they were intrigued by the fact that there were countless holes in the surroundings. While they were still off guard, the rabbits jumped out of the earth and their screams echoed. The group led by the piercer ran hurriedly, fueled by a tremendous rage at having been deceived. Without a map, they found themselves completely lost. The subordinates accompanying the piercer believed they would soon reach the right place, as they had found the three-way crossroads. However, it was there that they saw the ground move, a sign of a trap. They were too heavy. They should all have fallen into the trap. The entire group tried to grab onto something, but unexpectedly, nothing happened. Some even lost their balance while hugging their companions, yet the ground hadn't even budged. While everyone wondered what was happening since they were standing right on top of a trap, the captain drew his spear and thrust it against the ground. The earth shifted, and the tip of the spear hit solid stone floor. The piercer laughed upon discovering the trap was a fake. Only those at the cave entrance were real, but this irritated him to the bone. "I'm going to make you regret this." Tractor, the screaming piercer, a man who had once been a promising knight, now plundered monster fields and ambushed kingdom knights for items. Wounded, a young subordinate of Tractor ran toward him, shouting as he raced through the tunnel. "I found it! It was the middle tunnel!" Tractor was pleased to hear it. The sun was already setting when all the invaders who had entered the village were captured. Ji-hun praised the good work of Taor and the others. The protagonist looked at the tunnel entrance. By simply breaking one of the walls, they had managed to redirect the path back to the entrance, buying them a lot of time. However, now all that remained was to hold out one more time. One of the bandits managed to remove the wood, sealing his mouth, allowing him to mock, "You idiot, it doesn't matter how you've subjugated us. As soon as the boss arrives, it's over." Even completely battered, he remained confident. The man called the Screaming Piercer operates on a completely different level. Rhea grew tired of the bandit's words and silenced him with a kick. The foxwoman turned to Ji-hun, informing him that, as he had suggested, she had counted only the members capable of fighting. They still had 65. Including the boss, there were about 60 bandits left. Although they were at a stamina disadvantage after 2 battles, they had gained rich combat experience. Everyone had leveled up a few times, and no one was at the lowest level anymore. Ji-hun was confident they could face the bandits, for they had now become stronger. Resting his sword over his shoulder as he prepared for battle, Ji-hun noticed it was quite heavy for him. It wasn't long before more footsteps were heard in the tunnel. Rhea was the first to notice the bandits' approach. Tractor led his men, and from there saw dozens of his subordinates buried. He didn't care and cursed them without much emotion. Pathetic idiots. Looking around, Tractor asked, "Was this all your plan?" Meeting the bandit leader's gaze, Ji-hun corrected him. "You could call it a strategy." The bandit leader snorted, a slight smile appearing as he saw the boy's confidence. Still at the cave entrance, he announced, "Your 2 victories must have been sweet, but there won't be a third." Gripping his sword, Ji-hun confronted him. "That's what we're going to see." Tractor watched the young man move and say, "I'm going to make an offer, or rather, a threat." Placing his sword near one of Tractor's subordinates, Ji-hun ordered, "Drop your weapons. Otherwise, you will see your brother perish." Ji-hoon's sword was pointed precisely at the one who had plotted everything. Tractor fell silent. This was a situation he did not like to be in. Buried, Tractor's brother screamed to him, begging for help. Such a tactic was something only third-rate villains would do, but Ji-hoon would abandon all his principles if necessary. Unexpectedly, the screaming piercer dropped his spear. Ji-hoon was surprised, wondering if they would actually surrender. However, all the bandits were smiling maliciously. In that atmosphere, Ji-hoon saw the bandit leader lean down and touch the ground. Tractor screamed, "All of you kneel before me and scream in agony." A magic circle emerged, growing around the bandit leader. Ji-hoon watched, open-mouthed, at what was unfolding. An aura overflowed from Tractor, filling the entire cave and the bandits within. It was an area of effect, AoE bonus skill, a skill that increased allies' statistics by 25%. Even without seeing the enemy's stats, the beastman could physically feel that everyone's power had surged. The bandit leader let his subordinates charge forward, overtaken by madness. "Have as much fun as you want!" The bandit group, their statistics bolstered, surged forward, but the beastmen were undeterred and charged head-on to meet them. The two sides clashed quickly, and at the perfect moment, a smoke bomb blanketed the entire battlefield. The bandits' vision was obscured, making it easy for the rabbits to leap from their holes and strike them with ease. One of the bandits, though hit by numerous blows, refused to fall. He simply pulled out the dagger that had struck him, and with a manic grin asked playfully, "Are you done already?" The pair of rabbits who had attacked him were shocked. With energy overflowing from their eyes, the bandits moved with terrifying speed, capturing numerous rabbits. But Tar intervened, brandishing his hammer in the midst of the chaos. The Minotaur soon became the bandits' primary target. They used ropes to try and bind the bullman. The coils snared Tar's arms and neck before he could react. The bandits pulled with all their might, quickly bringing the Minotaur down and seizing the chance to swarm him. Tar saw countless bandits lunging at him at once. Simultaneously, other bandits were in hot pursuit of the flaming sheep, while others used crossbows to fire bolts at the small dragon, Rizzle. Ji-hoon watched the scene with a grim expression. Even after obtaining weapons that boosted their combat power, gaining experience, and leveling up, they were still being pushed back. He remembered something and scanned the area, searching for Rhea. The foxwoman was using her agility to strike at the bandits, but being outnumbered, she was soon surrounded. Rhea wiped the corner of her mouth, her face etched with exhaustion. Ji-hoon gritted his teeth, knowing Rhea was at her limit. At that moment, something flew past him, slamming into a tree with an impact that nearly brought it down. It was a young rabbit woman, knocked unconscious by the force of the blow. Ji-hoon knew that at this rate they would lose. There was only one way to end this battle: take down the leader. Tractor stood back, pointing and barking orders to his henchmen. On one side, Tor was pinned to the ground as several bandits hacked at his thick hide. The protagonist called out to the bull, who raised his eyes to meet his. Earlier, Tor had mentioned he could only awaken one more time. Remembering that the Tauros transformation lasted only 3 minutes, Ji-hoon had asked him to save it for his signal. The signal was given now. The bandits shouted at each other, ordering an all-out assault on the Minotaur. They dropped their clubs and drew swords, but the blades failed to penetrate the bull's skin. Tar awakened, his roar blasting the surrounding bandits away. The awakening increased the Minotaur's size, defense, and health points by 58%. Ji-hoon charged forward with Tor following close behind. Knowing they only had 3 minutes, Ji-hoon wanted to end the fight within that window. They swept toward Tractor, with Tor even dragging a bandit who was still desperately holding onto a rope tied to him. The bandit leader, however, smiled nonchalantly. Tar raised his heavy fists and brought them down toward the screaming piercer. Along with Tor's movement, the man tied to him was flung directly at the bandit chief. Without a care, even mocking his own subordinate, Tractor ignored the body as Tor continued his assault. The Minotaur's heavy punches made the very earth tremble. But the attacks weren't enough. Amidst the rising dust, Tractor's voice mocked, "Is size all you've got?" The bandit leader had caught the Minotaur's fist with his bare hands. At that instant, Ji-hoon circled behind him, planning a sneak attack. The leader, expecting it, smiled in derision. He stepped aside and hurled the massive Minotaur directly at the protagonist. Ji-hoon's eyes widened as he saw Tor flying toward him. They crashed to the ground, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. Before Tor could even stand, a boot appeared before his face. The Minotaur was driven into the dirt by the sheer force of Tractor's stomp. Ji-hoon, who had been thrown further back, forced himself up despite the pain. The bandit leader locked eyes with him. Tractor lunged fiercely, closing the distance in a heartbeat. He was stronger than Rhea and Tor, but against humans, Ji-hoon had a secret weapon, the monstrous strength, passive. He struck out with his final hope, the skill that caused all his statistics to increase by 300% when fighting humans. Putting everything he had into the strike, Ji-hoon landed a punch squarely on the screaming piercer, sending his entire body reeling backward. Rhea's intervention surprised Ji-hoon, as did Tar, who managed to catch a brief moment of respite. Ji-hoon had landed landed a solid blow on the bandit leader's face and heard his neck let out a sharp crack. However, Tractor merely took a single step back. Even with his face stained crimson, he smiled like a maniac. You're never getting that third victory. Tractor stood like a giant before Jihoon, who wondered how he could possibly defeat such a man. Before Jihoon could find an answer, a punch knocked the wind right out of him. The protagonist fell to his knees, gasping for air. Yet, even in that state, he tried to push himself up. He refused to perish there. Before Jihoon could stand, Tractor grabbed him by the head and slammed him against the hard ground. Pinning the boy to the dirt, the bandit leader mocked him. "You stay right there. Let everyone see your pathetic state." Whether they were bandits or rabbit folk, everyone's attention was drawn to the struggle. Tar gritted his teeth at the sight of his leader in such a position. Rhea refused to stand idly by and charged, screaming, "Get away from Jihoon!" In the middle of the foxwoman's sprint, someone leveled an arrow at her. Once fired, the arrow pierced Rhea's leg. She didn't even understand what was happening before she tumbled. Jihoon's eyes widened as he saw Rhea get hit and roll until she slammed into a tree. In the sky, the sun was nearly set. Tractor looked up, savoring the end of the day, though it wasn't late yet. Halting the battle, Tractor called out to his henchmen, "Listen to me, all of you. The war is over." As soon as the bandits regrouped, they heard Tractor's command, "Burn it all!" Jihoon gnashed his teeth as he saw the first torch raised. It was hurled into the crops, while others fell upon houses, feed, hay, and everything else within the rabbit village. What had been a peaceful scene the day before had become a field dominated by cruel fire. The wounded sheltered in the houses fled in haste as they saw the flames. Rabbits tried to use the tunnels to escape the heat. The bandits, throwing more and more torches, began to chant, "Burn, burn!" In the distance, the rabbits who were still fighting began to give up as they watched the fire. It's the end. While pressing Jihoon against the ground, the bandit leader forced him to look at the destruction of the village. "War isn't as simple as children think it is," he said. "The losing side loses everything." To one side, several bandits had tied up a goat man, forcing him to bleed in pain. Others ran toward Tar to finish him off. Rabbits scrambled to help their kin. Tractor showcased every one of those scenes, including the fire, as he hoisted Jihoon up. "Your family, your friends, your home, and even your life. You're going to lose everything." Rhea, who had managed to wrench the arrow from her leg, saw Jihoon being lifted by the bandit. Weakly, Jihoon reached out and grabbed the bandit's arm. The man smiled at the youth's struggle. "Still won't give up. It's over." Jihoon gritted his teeth, refusing to lose. In his mind, the moment he received his kitten as a gift from his mother flashed by. To return to that moment, he would fulfill the ultimate goal of the monsters, the total annihilation of humanity. Jihoon roared, "Until I fulfill my goal, I will never give up." At that exact moment, the full moon emerged in the sky. A certain person, upon noticing it, stared at it as if in a trance. A sword swung toward Jihoon, but before the attack could land, a foxwoman blurred past him. The arm of the man trying to strike Jihoon simply disappeared. The protagonist stared in shock at sharp claws stained red. Something had been strange. Every other beastman could awaken freely by spending mana points. However, Rhea had been unable to awaken, even with full mana. Thinking back, Jihoon remembered that even when she was on the brink of despair in the past, she hadn't used her awakening. Only now did he realize there was a restriction on the awakening of the foxfolk. With the moon illuminating her being, Rhea glowed with the reflection of the celestial body. The foxwoman's awakening had finally happened. Under the moonlight, her true powers were revealed, boosting her statistics by $100%. Having saved Jihoon, Rhea asked him for her next order. The protagonist watched the foxwoman while Tractor screamed in agony. Jihoon gave the command, "Eliminate them all, every last one of the bandits." With a light gaze, yet one brimming with power, Rhea nodded. The fox vanished under the moon and reappeared before the bandit leader, who fearfully raised his dagger, scoffing, "A mere monster dares to touch my arm." Rhea's expression remained serene as she raised her hand with straightened fingers. Her sharp nails tore through flesh. Like a feather caught in the wind, what should have been attached to the bandit's neck flew away. Seeing their chief and big brother eliminated, the lackey bandit stood agape. Upon hearing the sound of the bandit chief falling, Rhea turned around, commanding everyone to be silent. The bandits, who were already wounded despite their victory, were left speechless and trembling. At that moment, their strength began to drain as the effect increasing their stats was removed. The wounds on their bodies finally inflicted the pain they were meant to feel. The village continued to burn, and a tower of smoke reached the clouds. Stunned, Jihoon saw a notification appear. Night falls and monsters grow stronger. 20% bonus to all stats. Beneath everyone, from Tar to the rabbit men, a crimson energy surged. Tar roared like an infuriated bull, snapping the ropes that bound him. The rabbit woman, Rain, raised a small wooden club, commanding the others, "Let's counterattack!" The rabbits grew furious. Let's turn these humans inside out. Seeing the night arrive, the bandits knew for certain they would not win. Ji-hoon was still in awe of everyone when a drop of water fell on the tip of his nose. An unexpected rain began to fall. Rabbits, bulls, and sheep chased the human invaders, washed by the downpour. Allowing the rain to wash away his emotions, Ji-hoon, who had carelessly thought this was just a starting quest, realized he had been overconfident simply because the strategy was going well. All around him, the rabbits celebrated, taking a rain bath. Ji-hoon's first battle in this world had ended. In the end, more than half the village had been burned, and many beastmen had perished or been wounded. Even as everyone celebrated, Ji-hoon ground his teeth, blaming himself for not doing better. At that moment, Rhea approached him, sharing in his suffering. You don't have to carry everything alone. She reminded Ji-hoon that everyone's abilities were different. Rhea recalled how Ji-hoon had tried his best, how he hadn't given up, and how he had done everything possible within his own power. Holding back her emotions, Rhea forced a smile. Please take care of Warren from now on as well, village chief. Ji-hoon didn't expect to be recognized by the fox at that moment. Looking at the information in Rhea's status windows, he noticed the number next to the heart icon had increased to 51. Rhea blushed slightly, stuttering as she hastily fled. I'm going to help with the post-war cleanup. Rhea ran to the field where the fire had been extinguished. Her help gave everyone strength, yet Ji-hoon knew this wasn't over. This was only the beginning. The second main quest, construction of the monster faction, had been completed. The monster faction now had a population of 82. A notification appeared stating that Ji-hoon had received a random skill as a reward. Determined not to repeat the same mistakes, he moved forward, starting with the skill draw. Ji-hoon received the weapon refinement skill. Several days later, the reconstruction of the village was underway. Ji-hoon was on the roof of a house when he heard Rhea calling him from the ground. As he looked down at her, the tail of Rizzledrak, who was sleeping on top of Ji-hoon's head, got in the way. He brushed the dragon's tail aside and saw the girl inviting him to eat. The protagonist grew excited at the thought of eating, but upon seeing only carrots once again, his mood soured. Rhea ate enthusiastically. The carrot fields had burned, but the warehouse was safe. Rizzledrak joined her in eating a carrot, but Ji-hoon didn't want to keep eating only that. Confused, the protagonist asked the fox and the dragon if they weren't carnivores. Rhea replied, looking puzzled, that they were not. Feeling like he was undergoing forced vegetarianism, Ji-hoon saw no choice but to eat. From where he sat, Ji-hoon could hear the villagers' conversations. They were worrying about one another. As he continued to chew the carrot, he realized that the recovery power and vitality of the beastmen were excellent. Thanks to that, the village was being rebuilt at a rapid pace. It had been 2 weeks since the battle. During that time, funerals were held for the victims, and excluding those who perished or escaped, the 55 captured bandits remained buried up to their necks, exposed to sun and rain. Everyone wanted revenge for those sacrificed, but harming unarmed people was not easy. After a long discussion, the bandits were released. They were sent out to sea on a raft. While remaining tied up, they watched the shore recede. On a piece of paper tied to the mast, it was written, "The Screaming Piercer Band, whom not even the kingdom could capture." It was said that several monsters lived in the sea. If the group was lucky enough, they would be carried by the current and reach the kingdom, where they would receive appropriate punishment. As time passed, Ji-hoon discovered something else besides the fact that carrots were tiring. The reason the bandits sought the fox's den, the item the chief had been looking for. Ji-hoon discovered the item by chance when he visited Rhea's house. Surprise appeared on Ji-hoon's face when he saw the house was intact. Upon entering the wooden home and using the governor's eye, he saw some stones tied to a string. They were enhancement stones ranging from grade C to E. An enhancement stone under the table caught Ji-hoon's eye. It glowed green, like an emerald. It was a rank B enhancement stone. Hearing Ji-hoon call the items enhancement stones, Rhea, who possessed them without knowing what they were, asked exactly what those stones were. Ji-hoon was even more surprised to learn why she had those items. Suddenly, a large sack fell from the sky, or rather, from the ceiling. Upon opening the bag, Ji-hoon's jaw dropped. The sack was crammed with enhancement stones. While wondering what kind of event this was, Ji-hoon looked up, and shock took hold of his entire being. There were countless sacks tied to the ceiling, and judging by their size, it seemed they were all full of enhancement stones. There were several sacks containing hundreds of strengthening stones that shimmered like rainbows. Ji-hoon's eyes sparkled as he realized exactly how much they were worth. He later learned that foxes loved shiny objects and believed they brought good luck. Because of this, they had a habit of picking them out to decorate their homes. The bandits seemed to know this, which was why they had been hunting Rhea. The reconstruction came to a halt as everyone gathered to support the grieving fox, who had finally discovered the reason her village was attacked. Everyone else was fine, but she continued to blame herself. She even tried to throw all the strengthening stones into the sea, but Ji-hoon stopped her. The person who collected the shiny stones isn't the one to blame. Those who tried to steal them are the ones in the wrong. Despite Ji-hoon stating the obvious, the fox cried, biting her lips, while her heart points instantly jumped to 60. The enhancement stones were handed over to Ji-hoon, who claimed he would keep them since they were dangerous. Ji-hoon headed to the village armory. He wanted to run some tests with the stones. While the fox inevitably drooled over the precious gems, the protagonist took one and rubbed it against his sword, activating one of his new skills, Weapon Refinement. A red glow exploded through the armory windows. Rhea gasped at the brilliant light and was startled to see the shiny stone turn into fine powder. However, upon checking the sword, Ji-hoon smiled confidently. It was a success. Rhea started to protest since the stone had been broken, but Ji-hoon knew better. There was a 70% chance for a grade C enhancement. Crane's poisoned sword had gained an extra attack point. The percentages were identical to those of the human faction. Ji-hoon then checked a grade B item, the Screaming Piercer, the dagger that possessed a 130 attack and 230 magic attack. Taking the best item they had looted, he began the enhancement process with a green strengthening stone. Outside the house, a rabbit woman looked on in confusion at the strange glow. Ji-hoon didn't care and continued to use weapon refinement until the sun went down. The glow of the enhancement was the only thing visible throughout the night. When dawn broke, the light continued to overflow from the armory windows, surprising the rabbit villagers. When Rhea woke up, she yawned and rubbed her eyes, shocked to see that Ji-hoon was still there. Sitting on the floor, Ji-hoon revealed that he had used 2,568 items. Despite previously wanting to throw the stones into the sea, Rhea pulled Ji-hoon's hair to punish him for breaking all of them. The protagonist tried to stop the foxwoman, attempting to explain what enhancement actually was. Ji-hoon drew the Screaming Piercer dagger. It had obtained a 10% bonus attribute in both attack and magic attack, 13 and 23 points respectively. Ji-hoon celebrated having succeeded with 10 stones in a row. While Rhea was still trying to understand why this mattered, Ji-hoon pointed to the space in front of him. He showed her the countless swords taken from the bandits. Although they were only rank D or E, they now possessed attribute bonuses ranging from 50 to 100% of their original stats. They had been highly successful because of their low base level. Rhea was impressed to see that even Tor's weapon, the heavy axe, had reached level 100 enhancement, doubling its attack. Rhea, however, still couldn't see anything physically different about the weapons. Standing up amidst the dust, Ji-hoon sneezed, dealing with the irritation in his nose. Rhea looked around, noting that the place was messier than usual. At that moment, Tor appeared, looking for Ji-hoon. The timing was perfect. Ji-hoon pointed to a great hammer, asking the Minotaur to use it. As soon as he placed his hand on the handle, Tor was surprised, as it was extremely heavy. Using all his strength, Tor hoisted the hammer. Ji-hoon asked curiously if the Minotaur could handle it. Though he trembled from the increased weight, Tor explained there would be no problem. Although the Hammer of Desire was a grade C item, in terms of pure attack power, it now surpassed grade B items. The stat increase from weapon enhancement seemed to reflect in its physical weight. Ji-hoon sighed repeatedly at the results. Even with level 100 enhancement, he had only managed to reach just over 350 attack. Seeing the expression on his face, Rhea asked why his appearance always shifted from cold to somber. Ji-hoon's own sword, the Hellbringer, was a rank S sword with nearly 1,000 magic attack points. Ji-hoon wanted the best rank S sword possible for the first waves. Only then would the bandits lose the nerve to wander nearby. Sighing again, the protagonist muttered, "Since I can't use magic, I won't be able to use it. My Hellbringer, I wonder if it's doing all right so far away." Meanwhile, in the kingdom, everything seemed peaceful. However, in a section of the plaza, a young woman commented, "I heard the kingdom's reconstruction is almost finished. Why are they leaving such a large hole open?" The woman, with pointed ears and large glasses, sensed an evil aura emanating from the pit. Suddenly, a cry echoed from the great hole in the middle of the plaza, where rope ladders were used to descend. Ares was using all his strength, trying to pull a sword he had found out of the earth. Upon being touched, the sword released a malevolent energy that startled the rank S knight. Ares hastily dropped the sword, wondering what it was. Something was definitely happening. People who appeared to be from the temple rushed over. "This is astounding. Not even Lord Ares could pull it out?" They did not, however, want to simply seal the place off. All Ares could do was stare at the blade. Ji-hoon, far away, received his third main quest, expand the monster faction. He needed to gather monsters from the surrounding areas to grow his group. 1,000 people had to join the alliance in the vicinity for a massive reward to be unlocked. Seeing that Warren's population was only 82, and the system was forcing him to reach 1,000 members, the protagonist felt the goal was quite specific. A party window was activated. Ji-hoon could register up to 4 members. Synergy effects would be activated between members, and experience gained by the group would be shared and distributed based on contribution. The party system was similar to forming groups in Night Defense, something Ji-hoon was very familiar with. Excitedly, the protagonist stepped out of the house. "Let's go! Let's gather the monsters nearby." At that moment, Tor's firm voice rang out, "I cannot go." The Minotaur felt it was better to stay behind, to protect and rebuild Warren. Ji-hoon realized that although the Beastmen had grown stronger, he couldn't take Rhea and Tor, the village's strongest fighters and main force, away. He didn't even want to imagine another invasion occurring while they were gone. Unlike the game in real life, he had much more to consider. Still, for the sake of the synergy effects, Ji-hoon wanted to fill at least the 4 team slots. He decided to leave Tower in the village and search through the numerous rabbits for someone capable of replacing him, even if they weren't quite at his level. While some rabbits and even sheep looked on curiously, Rain sat nearby anxiously, praying that he would call her name. The protagonist took in the scene, wondering exactly who he should take with him. Ji-hoon analyzed the statistics of the village members. They were all fairly similar. Approaching Tar, Ji-hoon whispered something into the Minotaur's ear, asking for his assistance. Tar immediately began to gather everyone. Excluding the village chief Tor, Ji-hoon, and Rhea, there were 77 beastmen remaining in Warren. The protagonist didn't intend to take just anyone, so he organized a talent show to let all 77 demonstrate their skills. Tower lined up the rabbits and others. "Please, show your abilities. The most capable among you will be qualified to join the expedition team." With a sheet of paper in hand, Tower called the first in line. In a room with Rhea and a sleeping Rizzle, Ji-hoon instructed, "The most valuable criterion is that strong people are suited for adventures. If you possess special skills, please show us." The first person scratched his hands and, with an embarrassed smile, pleaded, "I would like to stay in Warren." Since Ji-hoon couldn't force anyone, he called for the next person. From there, several half-rabbits dodged the opportunity. Most needed to tend to the carrot patches, while others were busy eating them. Ji-hoon suddenly raised his hand, caught Tor's attention, and whispered again. Tower then announced, "From now on, only those who wish to participate may stay." Most of the rabbits promptly left. Only one person remained. Having filtered for volunteers, Tar gave her permission to enter. He noted down the name of the rabbit woman who would proceed with the test. Ji-hoon was waiting inside a hut that hadn't been fully repaired. It was still missing its roof. The person who approached him stuttered, the words failing to leave her mouth due to nervousness. Ji-hoon and Rhea looked curiously at the rabbit who, with a surge of courage, presented herself with a salute. "My name is Rain. I will give my all to the expedition team. Cooking, washing, gathering herbs, patrolling, or standing guard. I can do everything." Moved by Rain's excitement, Rhea raised her hand in approval. However, seeing Ji-hoon deep in thought, the rabbit began to tremble with anxiety. She tried to convince him, shouting, "I will dedicate my life to this." Ji-hoon simply asked, "Let's move to the next one for now." Rain followed the request, shouting through tears, "Next!" She walked away, feeling like she had failed. Ji-hoon signaled Tar to let the next participant in, but Tar revealed there was only one volunteer, which cheered Rain up instantly. She didn't have to compete against anyone. Ji-hoon, though somewhat incredulous, accepted the result. Thus, the expedition team was formed to find the lizard tribe. The trio, along with Rizel, left the village. Ji-hoon was at the center of the team with the rank S Rizel on his head. Rhea, currently rank B, was cheerful about exploring. And lastly, young Rain, who, despite being the weakest at rank D, was tremendously excited, even while carrying all the luggage. However, upon hearing the mission details, Rain's eyes widened. She broke into a cold sweat and asked, "Wait, lizards? You mean that terrible lizard tribe?" Ji-hoon was confused, realizing Tor hadn't explained the mission to her. Rain realized that in her nervous haste to join the team, she hadn't listened properly. Before the talent show, Ji-hoon and Tor had spoken. The Minotaur wanted to know if Ji-hoon had a destination in mind, as it was ideal to have a plan before recruiting. When they visited the former village chief's house, Tor showed how the old man had been in a deep sleep since the battle began. He wouldn't wake for at least a month. Ji-hoon sighed in disappointment. He had wanted to ask the elder if anyone in the village stood out. Rhea mentioned that due to human attacks, there were virtually no monster villages left nearby. She thought for a moment before revealing there were only a few hidden hamlets like Warren. However, Ji-hoon wanted stronger monsters to defeat the humans. Tar chimed in, revealing there was one tribe that hadn't been subjugated by humans. He noted, however, that they were fiercely independent and didn't form alliances. Curious, Ji-hoon listened as the Minotaur described the lizard tribe, located deep within the swamp. The swamp lay north of Warren, a place of towering trees and gloomy mist. The lizard men were the strongest race in that area, feared even by other monsters who avoided their territory. Ji-hoon didn't need the full explanation to understand their value. Lizard men were powerful beings that usually appeared after the 30th wave. For monsters currently below that level, the lizards were essentially gods. Ji-hoon knew that if he could ally with these third-wave monsters during the world's early stages, they would achieve an overwhelming victory. Tower handed over a map. They would need to cross 3 mountains and a river to reach the valley of the Twin Mountains, where the swamp lay. After hours of traveling, Ji-hoon was a mix of tired and bored. He couldn't even see the first mountain on the horizon yet. Meanwhile, Rhea darted from bush to bush until she found a rank D strengthening stone. Rain, carrying a massive backpack with 2 pots dangling from it, felt like she was in a true adventure alongside the village chief and Warren's strongest warrior. It made her heart skip a beat. She was desperate to prove her usefulness. Ji-hoon, exhausted, asked how much longer it would take to reach the first mountain. Rain's eyes lit up. This was her chance. She quickly fumbled for her notes. She had patrolled around Warren and organized various reconnaissance topics in the past. But before she could find the info, Rizzle flew into the sky and communicated with Ji-hoon. Ji-hoon asked, "So we just need to walk the same distance we've already covered?" The rabbit girl choked on her words, frustrated at being one step too late. Rizzle landed back on Ji-hoon's head, conveying that once they crossed the first mountain, the path would become faster. Seeing Rain fall behind, Rhea waved, "Come on, Rain, hurry up!" Rain gripped her backpack straps. "I need to prove my value, but I don't need to rush. The opportunity will definitely come." They eventually reached the mountain and walked along a path carved around it. However, a large boulder blocked the way. Rain was excited to help. Clearing paths was a rabbit's specialty. She prepared her skill to transform into a rabbit and dig through. But before she could act, Rhea shattered the rock with a single kick. Rhea walked past the debris, surprised. "It broke easier than I thought." Ji-hoon replied, "Well, our items were recently upgraded." The conversation ended there since Rhea didn't understand levels. Seeing Rain in her transformed state, Rhea asked why she had used her awakening. To hide her embarrassment, Rain scratched her head with a self-deprecating smile. "Oh, I just made a mistake." Rain sighed as she walked. She didn't want to be a burden, but she felt her help wasn't needed. Suddenly, however, her ears began to twitch. She heard a distant sound. She quickly warned, "Something is moving, I hear footsteps." Ji-hoon looked around but heard nothing. Rhea explained that Rain had exceptional hearing, even for a rabbit. That was why she had been the scout for Warren. Ji-hoon looked at the girl and remembered that she was the one who had risked everything to run back through the tunnels to warn them about the bandits. Back then, she had seemed like just a child. After analyzing the sound, Rain pointed, "The sound is coming from the direction where the humans live." Even from miles away, Rain had caught the sounds of activity from the kingdom. Rain continued to analyze the sound until she realized it was being made by the rat tribe. There weren't just 1 or 2. A large-scale movement was occurring, and all the noise originated from the region where the humans lived. Discovering that the rat tribe was heading toward the royal palace, Ji-hoon speculated that this might be a new wave. Rain, however, pointed out that the rats' behavior was strange. The rat tribe villages are scattered throughout the forest. They usually only act within their own territories, but now they are gathering in a single place. Hearing Rain's words, Rhea knew for certain that something was happening. Ji-hoon made a decision. "Let's follow them. There's something I need to confirm." Ji-hoon left the task to Rizzle, who grabbed him by the shirt collar, flapping his wings to lift him. Ji-hoon and Rhea were about to descend the mountain when Rain hurriedly stopped them. "I won't be able to carry this backpack. It's too heavy to follow you with it." As Ji-hoon thought of a solution, Rain felt like she had become a hindrance once again. The protagonist came up with an idea, and after asking Rain to put the bag on the ground, he reached out his hand and commanded, "Store!" The backpack vanished, entering Ji-hoon's inventory. Seeing magic happen before her eyes, Rain was awestruck. The backpack counted as an item and ended up occupying several slots within Ji-hoon's inventory, leaving the urge to check his inventory details for another time. The protagonist focused on the noise in the forest. He first needed to confirm the identity of the monster wave. Thus, he jumped toward the precipice held by Rizzle. Rhea did the same, as did Rain, who transformed into a rabbit to be lighter and glide through the air. A large bell tolled in the city, and frantic shouts echoed, "It's war! War is coming!" People ran through the streets warning that monsters were approaching. The humans gnashed their teeth, cursing the vile creatures that gave them no rest. A massive army marched through the city, led by Ares with Lib at his side. "Clear the way! The sun will set soon." Seeing Ares and the army, the people cheered and supported them enthusiastically. A little girl asked her mother, confused, "Mom, why do the monsters attack us?" The mother replied, not knowing the truth, "Because they are beings beyond comprehension. They are vile and violent. So that we may survive, we must become stronger." Lib watched the conversation between mother and daughter, many thoughts weighing on his mind. At that moment, Rizzle's wings continued to beat. He was the only one in the sky, guiding the path followed by Rain and Rhea on the ground. However, Rhea realized they were going the wrong way. Rizzle could no longer fly much longer. He was at his limit. Feeling guilty, Ji-hoon vowed he would lose weight. Mid-flight, Rizzle became so exhausted that he stopped flapping his wings, terrifying Ji-hoon. The village chief's party startled Rain, who, along with Rhea, ran toward the sound of his voice. Ji-hoon saw the ground approaching rapidly as he fell. Upon impact, a cloud of dust was launched into the sky. Even so, Ji-hoon used his body to protect Rizzle, hugging him during the fall. Relieved that he wasn't hurt, the little dragon exhaled with a smile. Since their bodies were undamaged, Ji-hoon stood up and looked around to see where they were. He felt they hadn't yet crossed the mountain near the kingdom. During his search, Ji-hoon's eyes widened at what he saw. Rhea and Rain ran toward him, only to find him staring at something with a somber gaze. Rain followed Ji-hoon's look, and both she and Rhea were shocked. There lay the rat tribe, and not a single one was still alive. Giant rats were scattered across the rocks, where countless attacks marked the battlefield. Ji-hoon noticed that most of the rats had slash wounds. Once again, he felt terrible facing a pile of corpses. It felt just like the day he arrived in this world. Since traveling to this place, seeing creatures perish strangely didn't make him feel anything, as if it were already normal. Rain was shocked to see the bodies. She had clearly heard the sound of rats running just minutes ago, and the direction hadn't been where they were now, which made her wonder what was going on. To answer her, one of the rats, a survivor, coughed, drawing their attention. The group rushed toward the rat while Rain grabbed some herbs to treat him. As she applied the medicine to the rat's wound to stabilize him, the poor monster thanked her for the help. Despite being weak, he prepared to tell his story. However, at that moment, he spotted Ji-hoon. Remembering the hateful gaze of the humans, the rat panicked and attacked the protagonist in a desperate move. Being parried by the foxwoman, he roared, "What are you doing? It was the humans who did this to us!" Rhea then asked him to look carefully at Ji-hoon. Paying close attention, the rat realized that although he looked like a human, the man in front of him transmitted the feeling of a monster. Rhea reassured him, "It's okay to relax. Ji-hoon is different from other humans." Ji-hoon then revealed they had followed the rat tribe and asked him to tell them what happened. The rat lowered his head at the memory. "Humans wearing armor, the knights of the kingdom, they suddenly attacked us." Ji-hoon frowned as the rat continued the story. They were at peace in the sand plains when they spotted a large army from the kingdom. The leader of the army pointed in their direction and ordered the advance. The rats were caught off guard and massacred. As the end of the day approached, new rats began to move. A large rat with eyes full of rage commanded his companions, "Companions of the rat tribes, 8 villages have been attacked by humans so far. What did we do wrong? We can't take this anymore." Like a war drum, the rats beat their tails on the ground, making the earth tremble. From the city walls, archers prepared to attack. Leading the army, Ares gnashed his teeth provocatively. "Disgusting monsters, come on!" The leader of the rats opened his mouth, salivating, and screamed, "Tonight we take revenge for those who perished." An army of rats, supported by rats as large as the city walls, had surrounded the city entrance. A massive frontal war was about to begin. Back on the earthen plain, the rat saved by Ji-hoon and the others revealed he had discovered the humans' intent through the actions of one of them, who had a ring in his lip. He gnashed his teeth as he told them, "The reason they attacked us was because of a single purple stone." Ji-hoon frowned as he imagined what such a stone was, a rank S strengthening stone. Looking at the sky, Lib saw that the sun had already set. The leader of the rats, empowered by the knight's strength bonus, fiercely reminded his companions, "Remember our sole purpose, eliminate the humans." Rats of all sizes surged toward the walls. The rat tribe's transformation had been activated, temporarily losing their sanity. Their statistics increased by 30%. As they charged, a rain of arrows was unleashed upon them. The shafts fell thick, but even wounded, the rats refused to stop. An order echoed from atop the wall, and the archers focused their fire on the giant rat leader. A spear was raised high, igniting in a golden glow. The firewall skill was unleashed, and like an avalanche of flames, it swallowed the rats in a straight line. While the rats forced their way toward the walls, the young survivor recounted what had happened to Ji-hoon. "I tried my best to stop the humans." He had stood before the army to confront them, but now he only gnashed his teeth, remembering how they simply turned and walked away after getting what they wanted, without a second glance. Rhea clenched her fist in fury as she heard the account of the rat people. Anguish took hold of Ji-hoon, but he felt he had no right to complain or be resentful. He remembered his old life, where he had been used by those who didn't care. It was clear that the humans here were no different. Their own interests were all that mattered. In front of the walls, piles of rat corpses began to mount. The arrows continued to fly, and on the battlefield, only a single rat appeared to have survived. As the last of his pack, he lunged forward with what remained of his strength. The rat chief would not let his longtime companions sacrifice themselves alone. He would fight, even if it meant joining them in death. The leader leaped over the bodies of his fallen kin, using them as a springboard to vault into the air. Lib, atop the wall, looked down at the rat below. Even with arrows peppering his body, body, the creature did not give up. It was a final movement, carrying the pain and will of his people, seeking to engrave them upon humanity. Mid-air, the great rat released an energy of lightning, preparing his ultimate sacrifice. Ares gnashed his teeth at the danger before his eyes. Knights and soldiers scrambled to flee as they realized the rat had initiated a self-destruction skill. Lightning arced from the rodent's body as it swelled larger and larger. Having prepared his desperate attack, the rat murmured, "For peace." At that moment, Lib's sword was drawn. His skill was unleashed before the self-destruction could fully trigger. The dance of the light sword was used as Lib passed through the great rat with a single cutting stroke. The attack was released in the blink of an eye. The rat knew he had failed and felt a surge of profound frustration. A massive explosion rocked the city gate, though it was contained thanks to Lib, who prevented it from reaching its full potential. From where Jihoon and the others stood, they heard the boom of the blast, even with mountains separating them. The chief of the rat tribe is an explosive rat, the protagonist revealed to his companions. That must have been his sacrifice skill. The young rat survivor lowered his head in sorrow, knowing the truth. The sixth wave, explosive rats, was relatively easy to the point where a single rank S knight could handle it. Even if the self-destruction had succeeded, it would have only damaged the walls. Just as Jihoon expected, a large crater was created in front of the wall, leaving only the main gate damaged. Lib looked at the destruction and wondered, even knowing he wouldn't survive, he still wanted to show us this? Knowing the pain the rat tribe felt, Jihoon ground his teeth. When he was with Tar, the Minotaur had introduced him to the village. Most of those living there were women and children who had never fought in their lives. Tar had later revealed why there were so few strong men among the beastmen. They were always confronting the kingdom, seeking vengeance. Until then, Jihoon hadn't fully realized that the monster attacks, like the one by the rat before him, were caused by human greed. He remembered King Barris Jordia's words about how the empire was in crisis and how all Jihoon had to do was obey him. He realized that if he had accepted the proposal, he would be participating in these attacks to protect a nefarious kingdom. Rizzle watched his master's expression, which seemed more settled now. Even though he had changed factions, Jihoon was still human. He would move based on his own goals, seeking the ultimate objective of the monster faction, to destroy humanity, all for his own benefit. Without looking at the young women accompanying him, Jihoon spoke. "Ria, Rain, I haven't yet told you the real reason I want to find the lizard tribe, why I want to gather them to increase our power." The two watched him as he continued. "The monster waves heading toward the kingdom are all the result of human attacks. If we do nothing, these attacks will only end when they eliminate every monster on this land." Facing the vast world, Jihoon revealed his purpose. "I want to topple the kingdom before all the monsters of this land vanish, and for that, I need your strength." Silence permeated the area near the forest that had become a graveyard for the rat tribe. Jihoon waited for a response. He didn't know how they would react, but he knew that taking down the human faction would benefit them all. Ria was the first to answer. She revealed she had already felt that Jihoon's hostility toward humans was different from what others showed. Even during the battle with the bandit chief, and when he spoke of the lizards or becoming stronger, she saw sincerity in his words. Everyone in Warren had seen their families attacked and friends perish at human hands. They had no power to resist, but Ria saw in Jihoon a leader who had already led them to victory once, someone who protected Warren. With sincerity in her voice, Ria declared, "If the means to restore peace for everyone is to topple the kingdom, I will be happy to support you." Jihoon was struck by her words. At that moment, young Rain raised her hand and declared, despite trembling with fear, "I will help too." The young rabbit still remembered her parents, who died saving her and her brother. Because rabbit men were seen as the most fragile race, Rain had always believed she couldn't help. But when she saw Jihoon punch the evil human, she felt inspired. She decided then that she would follow him. Blushing slightly, Rain scratched her cheek and smiled. "I might not be of much help, but I'll do my best." Rain was surprised to hear a simple reply. "Thank you." The Beastmen and Jihoon now shared the same purpose, though for different reasons it was enough. Certain that the monsters only attacked because of the humans' indiscriminate greed, Jihoon declared, "We are going to break this chain of hatred to restore peace to this world." Rizzle was the first to sense movement as Jihoon's speech drew to a close. A weak voice drifted from the shadows. "Us too." A few rats who had managed to survive stood up, despite their grievous wounds. An old rat leaning on a crutch spoke for his kin. "We would also like to join you." Little by little, the survivors emerged. Jihoon later discovered they had been terrified when they first saw him and had hidden to eavesdrop on his conversation before deciding to trust him. Another rat rose from the rubble, startling Jihoon with his massive size. "Me too!" Sometime later, the surviving rats were gathered in groups, waiting for young Rain to treat them. Once the survivors were stabilized, they held a farewell ceremony, burning the bodies of those who had perished in a great funeral pyre. Jihoon had been in this world for 2 weeks, and the kingdom had already repelled the sixth wave. He recognized that time was not on their side. They needed to recruit the lizard men as quickly as possible before the kingdom grew any stronger. The next morning at sunrise, Jihoon handed a map to the rat men, instructing them to head to a specific cave and meet with Tor. As they parted ways, the rat holding the map looked confused. The map consisted only of 3 triangles and 2 circles as reference points. Nevertheless, the main quest to expand the faction, which had stood at 82 members, now surged by 67. The group resumed their journey toward the swamp. Along the way, they encountered a river. While Rhea and Rain crossed with ease, Jihoon was swept away by the current, giving the girls a scare. These difficulties made Jihoon realize the journey would be much more arduous than expected. However, the day brought new gains. They stumbled upon a goblin cave. Jihoon handed them another map and sent them to Tar. Once again, the map was so cryptic that the monsters had to put in extra effort just to decipher the destination. 40 goblins were added to the faction. Later, Jihoon encountered a group of minotaurs. When he mentioned Tar, the tribe leader recognized the name. 12 minotaurs accepted the invitation. As they pushed forward, slimes appeared. The Slime King, who was supposed to appear in the 7th wave, was on the move with his army, heading straight for the kingdom. Jihoon rushed to block their path. "Wait, please listen to me." The Slime King tried to bypass him by simply shifting his body around the obstacle. Jihoon struggled to stop them, warning, "If you keep going this way, you'll perish." He learned the slimes had been driven out by humans and were migrating in search of a new cave. Jihoon drew yet another map, marking a path across 3 mountains toward a large cavern. After a long conversation, he persuaded them. With the slimes convinced, Jihoon added 793 members to the faction. He was now fewer than 10 members away from completing the quest. By sunset, the group was struggling to climb a mountain. Even Rhea was showing signs of fatigue. Rain, who was scouting ahead, pointed to the horizon. "Over there! 2 mountain peaks!" Jihoon and Rhea joined her and saw the twin mountains in the distance. The journey was far, but they felt closer than ever. Jihoon's stomach growled, breaking the moment. He decided it was time to eat. Seeing the large bag reappear, Rain's eyes lit up. Another chance to be useful. She quickly pulled out their supplies. While Rhea ate without complaint, Jihoon's spirit dampened at the sight of carrots yet again. "Is there anything else in this forest?" he asked. Rain, noticing his dissatisfaction, pulled out some small red berries. Jihoon was thrilled to see wild raspberries. He tossed them into his mouth, overcome with relief. "It's been so long since I tasted something this sweet and refreshing." As Rhea munched on a carrot, she asked if he liked raspberries. Jihoon was surprised she even knew what they were. Seeing that raw carrots weren't to Jihoon's liking, Rain grabbed a frying pan. "Should I try to cook a little?" Jihoon begged her to do so. Sometime later, the aroma of Rain's cooking filled the air. A familiar scent wafted from the bubbling pot, and Rain served him a bowl. After one sip of the soybean paste soup, Jihoon smiled with pure joy. Rhea tried it too, shocked by the flavor. When asked about the paste, Rain shyly revealed, "Cooking is my hobby, so I've experimented with soybeans." Rain was glowing with pride until Jihoon's voice turned firm. "Rain!" The young rabbit jumped, thinking she had done something wrong, but Jihoon was pointing behind her into the shadows. A voice drifted from between the trees. "That smells so good." Rain turned to find 2 green giants staring at her. She froze in terror. "Ogres!" An ogre's hand reached toward her, but swerved at the last second to snatch a carrot. Jihoon noticed the ogres' bodies were covered in scars and wounds. As they ate, they grunted to each other about the delicious smell. One ogre, unsatisfied with just carrots, looked toward the soup pot. He leaned down to sniff it, a smile spreading across his face. Jihoon tried to stop him, but the ogre grabbed the hot pot with both hands. He immediately dropped it, howling in pain as he felt the heat. Jihoon knew ogres weren't known for their intelligence, but seeing this, he wondered how they survived. He considered adding them to Warren's forces, but doubted they could ever follow one of his maps. Using the governor's eye, Jihoon saw they were rank B and quite high level, between 13 and 14. The second ogre reached for the pot and, predictably, repeated the first one's mistake, dropping it and yelping. As Jihoon interacted with the ogres, a hooded figure carrying several apples appeared in the forest. The apples were dropped as the figure sprinted toward Jihoon, who was still trying to talk to the ogres. Rhea sensed the hostile movement and moved instantly, blocking an attack aimed at Jihoon's life. With her claws extended, she parried a sword. "Who are you?" Jihoon stood frozen as he saw the ears of the assailant. Unexpectedly, he was standing face to face with a dark elf. The elf's hand moved in a blur, shoving Rhea aside. A low murmur escaped his lips. Shadow bond, restraint of darkness. Rhea tried to turn and stop him, but her body froze mid-motion. The elf swung his sword directly at Jihoon. The protagonist was caught off guard by the sudden strike, but reacted just in time. Reaching into the abyss inventory, he pulled out a dagger and braced for impact. The clash of blades sent a shockwave of air reverberating through the campsite. The dark elf stared at Jihoon's weapon, sensing a tremendous, overflowing magical power radiating from it. Jihoon gnashed his teeth and demanded, "Why are you attacking us?" The elf threw the same question back at him. Before Ji-hoon could process the oddity of the situation, the elf spun his blade, using the momentum to shove Ji-hoon's guard back. Flicking his wrist to change his grip, the elf settled into a stance Ji-hoon recognized instantly, a preparation for a diagonal strike. The darkness slash was unleashed. A wave of energy tore toward Ji-hoon, following the exact pattern he knew from the game, from the top right to the bottom left. The attack caused a massive explosion that could be seen by knights in the distance. The strike cleaved a massive boulder in two, but Ji-hoon managed to roll away, narrowly avoiding the hit. Drained of stamina, Ji-hoon forced himself back up. The dark elf was stunned. Did he know the blind spot of my technique? That's impossible! Ji-hoon gripped his sword firmly. I'm asking you again, why are you attacking us? But the dark elf was stubborn. You're the one attacking the ogres. The accusation left Ji-hoon bewildered until he remembered the wounds on the giant's hands. Seeing him play dumb, the elf pointed at the burns on the ogres. How do you explain those injuries and their screams? The screams were because they were stupid enough to touch the hot pot, Ji-hoon yelled back. At the word stupid, the elf's rage flared. Desperate to prove his innocence, Ji-hoon turned to one of the ogres. Hey, we didn't cause those wounds on you, did we? The ogre blinked and confirmed. Exactly. No. Ji-hoon looked back at the elf, satisfied. See? Did you hear him? Countering Ji-hoon's question, the elf asked the ogres, Did this guy hurt you? Unexpectedly, the ogres nodded in agreement. Hearing the second answer, the elf cursed, Ogres have low intelligence, and you tried to take advantage of that, you bastard! The elf lunged again. Ji-hoon tried to plead for him to listen, but they were forced to cross blades once more. Tired of being misunderstood, Ji-hoon's fury peaked, and he released the dark energy stored within his blade. I already said it wasn't me! Ji-hoon's sword slammed into the elf's guard, pushing his own blade back against his shoulder and wounding him. Ji-hoon felt the weight of the strike. It was a critical hit. Crimson stained the green grass. The dark elf recoiled, clutching his shoulder. To him, this human had seemed insignificant, but that attack was anything but ordinary. He realized he had to use his remaining mana. Rhea finally regained her movement, staring at her hands as the spell broke. But the elf acted quickly, pointing his hand at Ji-hoon to cast the spell again. Shadow Restraint targeted a specific foe and had a 100% success rate if the target was of a lower rank. Rhea snarled as she saw the imprisonment magic again, but the elf leveled his sword at her, ordering her not to move. With an air of self-righteousness, the elf declared, The iron rule of our village says that even if you commit a crime, you can redeem yourself. Tell the truth and beg the ogres for forgiveness. Focused on Rhea, the elf made the fatal mistake of turning his back on Ji-hoon. The protagonist stood up, his eyes glowing with a menacing light as he stood behind the elf. I told you, it wasn't me! The elf spun around, but he wasn't fast enough to avoid the hilt of Ji-hoon's sword slamming into his head. He crumpled to the ground, shocking the ogres. Leo is strong, but he lost. The dark elf never imagined the human wouldn't be restrained. His confidence in the spell had caused him to lower his guard. As his vision blurred, he wondered if this human was actually stronger than him. He ground his teeth, refusing to yield, but Rhea quickly pinned him by the arm, disarming him. Shadow Restraint was a broken ability, but Ji-hoon knew its secret. It only worked 100% of the time against lower ranks. Against equals or superiors, the success rate plummeted. Using the reflection in a nearby pool of water, Ji-hoon checked his own stats. His attribute distribution was absurd. Everything was dumped into critical hit rate and critical damage, but the strangest thing was that he had no visible rank listed. I must be at least rank A or higher, Ji-hoon thought, since this level 17 dark elf is rank A. Rhea held her sharp claws to the prisoner's throat, asking Ji-hoon what to do. The elf, who had set out on his journey to become a legendary warrior, now sat defeated. Unexpectedly, Ji-hoon ordered Rhea to let him go. He sheathed his sword, shocking both the fox and the elf. Ji-hoon extended a hand, determined to prove the misunderstanding. We didn't hurt the ogres. Not only was he telling the truth, but he volunteered to help find the real culprit. On the elf's status screen, the heart icon ticked up to 19. Suddenly, the sound of metallic footsteps echoed through the trees. A cold, menacing voice emerged from the darkness. Found you. Ji-hoon looked toward the source. A man in full plate armor stepped into the light, his eyes glowing with malice. You stupid ogres, there's no point in running. In the man's lip, Ji-hoon spotted a silver ring. The knight with the silver ring in his lip walked toward Ji-hoon. He remembered what the rat had said. Such a knight had attacked the tribe to obtain a small stone. Ji-hoon immediately used the ruler's eye, knowing this was the knight who had attacked the rat tribe. Although he couldn't see the statuses of humans, Ji-hoon could guess them approximately. The man possessed a 3-star emblem on his shoulder, which meant he was in the 3rd class of knights, the House of Superior Knights, an A-rank knight. There were countless A-rank knights, so it was hard to remember everyone's face. But the fact that Ji-hoon's memory was a mess meant that this was not a main character. The knight looked around with curiosity. What? Ogres, beastmen, and even humans? What kind of combination is this? The man then looked in another direction, and upon seeing the person with dark skin and pointed ears, recognized Leo as a dark elf. Smiling maliciously, the knight touched the ring on his mouth and commented, "Elves are quite valuable. This hunt has become lucky." Pulling the knight out of his thoughts, Ji-hoon questioned him. "Was it you who attacked the rat tribe?" With arrogance, the knight replied, "So what if it was me?" Staring at Ji-hoon, the dark elf wondered why he was talking to a human. Ji-hoon pointed to the ogres, also questioning, "Was it you who caused these wounds on them?" The dark elf followed Ji-hoon's movements, beginning to understand. The knight smiled upon hearing the second question. In the knight's hands, one could see spiked brass knuckles stained with red. When the knight smiled maliciously, showing them off, the dark elf understood the whole truth. He lowered his head, apologizing to Ji-hoon for misunderstanding him. Ji-hoon looked at the dark elf with curiosity. With irritation in his words, the dark elf understood the entire situation and disappeared from Ji-hoon's side, charging at the knight. Against the dark elf's sword, the superior ranked knight raised his arm, defending the attack with his bracer. Ji-hoon knew, however, that although both were A rank, the dark elf carried only an E rank magic dagger. The difference in equipment was enormous. Blocking the attack, the knight mocked, "What kind of little toy is this?" The dark elf retreated quickly. Knowing he could not pierce the enemy's armor, he created a new plan: attack where there was no armor. The dark elf leapt, circling the knight to attack him from behind. The attack was fast, and with the tip of the magic dagger, the dark elf managed to hit the target, who was unable to push him away in time. Feeling the cut, the knight gnashed his teeth. "You low-born bastard!" The knight managed to grab Leo's arm since he had moved closer. With his other hand, he prepared a punch with the spikes. The dark elf's eyes widened as he saw the attack approaching his face. In a hurried movement, he raised his arm and took the blow to avoid being hit in the face. However, this opened a gap for the knight to deliver another punch, this time to the abdomen. Leo gnashed his teeth and gripped his sword tightly, ignoring the pain to attack. The blade, however, came down directly onto the heavy armor. Ria watched the confrontation, jaw dropped. The attack hit the knight squarely, but the sword could not withstand it and shattered against the hard steel. Leo's eyes widened in disbelief. The knight's hand then approached and, with a heavy slap, the dark elf was thrown to the ground. The knight sighed after the attack, reprimanding himself. "I ended up getting too excited. I can't break the merchandise." Ji-hoon heard that with surprise. Trying to get up, Leo stammered. However, before he could rise, the knight stepped on him, pinning him to the ground again. Seeing the doubt in Ji-hoon's eyes, the knight confirmed, "Yes, this is merchandise." He pointed to the ogres and then to Ria, continuing, "You all will also be merchandise, though of low value." The knight continued, addressing Ji-hoon, "I don't know what you are doing here, but if you are a citizen of the kingdom, you should know how popular show monsters are." With his eyes on the monsters, he revealed that people went crazy upon seeing exotic curiosities. The knight found it strange that Ji-hoon didn't seem to know about show monsters, but soon understood. "I didn't recognize you because you changed your clothes." Laughing loudly, the knight touched the silver ring once more and asked, "It's you, isn't it? The legendary knight. This hunt has become even luckier. Rare ogres, a young dark elf, and even the human traitor. I'm going to earn a massive reward." The knight crouched to gain momentum and lunged toward Ji-hoon without announcing the attack. Ji-hoon did not hesitate and pulled the sword from his inventory. The knight punched toward the protagonist, who tried to block with the sword. With the force of the impact, Ji-hoon was pushed back, but he resisted by digging his feet into the ground. Seeing that his attack had been contained, the knight's eyes fell upon Ji-hoon's sword. "That's quite valuable, isn't it?" Ji-hoon ignored him and questioned angrily, "Is all of this the king's orders?" The knight responded with pride, "The king's orders are absolute." As the battle unfolded, Rizzle, who had fallen asleep after eating, ended up waking up. Night had already fallen, and faced with so much malice practiced by the knight, Ji-hoon felt less and less guilty. The knight was confident that the youth was merely uttering empty words. Focused on Ji-hoon, he didn't notice Ria approaching. The foxwoman's claws sliced through the air and destroyed the knight's bracer, though he managed to defend himself at the last second. After the attack, Ria retreated. Leo, who had managed to stand up because he was no longer being attacked, was surprised. Groups in a party shared experience points, but the distribution was based on contribution. Ji-hoon, in that battle against the knight, hoped to deliver as much experience as possible to Ria. Griping the sword firmly, Ji-hoon asked Rizzle to be ready should it be necessary. Having been attacked and outperformed in an exchange, the knight cursed, "Uncivilized beings, you're actually quite good." At that moment, the knight raised his hand and unexpectedly conjured magic. "Stone gathering!" Rocks from the ground rose, gathering around the knight's arm. Ji-hoon recognized the earth attribute skill. With a giant stone arm, the knight attacked with a colossal punch, shouting, Do you know how expensive the armor you broke is? The stone fist lunged toward Rhea, who had destroyed the bracer. When the punch hit the ground, it caused an explosion of dust and debris. When the stone fist was raised once more, it was revealed that Rhea had not been hit. It was a crude attack, and like any large weapon, it was significantly slow. The stone fist had become a double-edged sword against an awakened Rhea. However, Ji-hoon still saw a problem. A prolonged battle would be disadvantageous for the fox. Using the power of the moon, Rhea, who had retreated to the top of a tree, moved again. The knight opened his giant stone hand, attempting to grab her. Rhea, however, managed to dodge the giant hand, attacking with her claws once more. This time, she struck the knight's shoulder, right where the 3-star marks of his rank were located. The dark elf watched the beast woman while he rested, and Rain approached to help treat his wound. Leo questioned why she would help him, but Rain, already applying the medicinal paste to her fingers, revealed that it was all she could do. As Rain treated the wound on the dark elf's shoulder, the battle between the knight and Rhea continued, destroying the camp's surroundings. Rhea continued to strike the knight's armor, destroying his other bracer as well as the back of his plate. She moved fast so the stone fist wouldn't hit her. The foxwoman's speed surprised even the ogres. The reason why Rhea, at rank B, could face an A-rank knight was the overwhelming difference in speed. She relied on her skills. However, all transformation skills had a duration limit. At a certain point, Rhea began to slow down, and the power of the moon abandoned her. When Rhea faltered, the stone fist swung toward her. The young fox was terrified as she wouldn't be able to escape. The attack hit her, launching her against a tree. Upon hitting her back, Rhea coughed heavily. She felt her remaining energy draining away. Everything seemed lost at that moment. Gripping his sword and facing the knight, whose back was turned to him, Ji-hoon prepared an attack. He tried to adjust the angle, afraid of hitting Rhea as well. The attack would not be launched by Ji-hoon, but by Rizal, who was in his hands. It was a shame to use Rizal's area of effect attack against a single person, but it paled in comparison to Rhea's life. If they eliminated the knight, they would also gain the experience for defeating an A-rank character. The knight suddenly stopped. The protagonist was surprised by the reason. In front of Rhea, the dark elf Leo stood up to protect her. Seeing the elf with the broken sword, the knight warned, "Get out of the way, because I might end everything, whether it's good quality or not." The knight, who had now been healed by Rain, became even more confident and declared, "To force me to give up, you'll need to end my life." Vowing that he would not lose to anyone, the dark elf swordsman charged at the knight. The magic sword hit the armor once more, but it didn't even pierce a millimeter. The knight, still standing still, looked at the man attacking him. "I heard dark elves were troublesome creatures who exuded debuff magic, but this makes no sense." Simply moving his hand with force, the knight threw the dark elf to the ground once more. He ignored him and walked toward Rhea, mocking, "Thanks to your inferior intelligence, my anger has subsided a bit. Don't worry, I'll spare you." Cracking his knuckles, however, he glared at Rhea with a dark look. Unlike the elf, beasts who don't know their place need a lesson. Unexpectedly, the dark elf's sword was swung once more, and its broken part struck the knight's armor. Ji-hoon, seeing these repeated actions, wondered why the elf was going so far. The knight grabbed the elf by the shirt, hoisting him up. With a voice dripping with contempt, he warned, "I said I'll spare you, but you don't seem to understand my language. But it's not your fault. You were just born as an inferior race that only knows how to cry instead of speak." Staring the enemy in the eyes, Leo remembered his father's words. "Don't worry. When you grow up, your magic power will increase naturally." However, when he grew up, he continued to have less magic power than an ordinary child. Finding himself in an abyss of shadows, he was looked down upon when compared to his father, the tribal chief. Faced with so much ridicule, Leo left the tribe, swearing he would return stronger. Remembering his father, Leo began to cry, apologizing for not being able to keep his promise. At that moment, Ji-hoon shouted, calling out to the dark elf. Ji-hoon used all his strength to hurl the sword toward Leo. The sword spun through the air as it flew toward him. The dark elf, with agility, caught the sword mid-air. Feeling the magic power dwelling within it, he was stunned. It overflowed with energy. The knight was startled to see the dark elf obtain a weapon while being so close to him. With that magic power, the dark elf attacked, confident he would break through the enemy's defense. The tip of the sword touched the chest plate of the armor, but unexpectedly, it did not move forward. The knight laughed with relief, realizing he had been saved. Ji-hoon watched the situation with a furrowed brow. A dark elf's attack should start at the top right and move down to the bottom left in a diagonal. It was at that moment that Leo gathered all his strength, moving the sword at a lateral angle. The knight's eyes widened as he felt an unexpected chill. Energy exploded from the sword the dark elf held, cutting everything in front of it. The blow tore through the forest, toppling countless trees. The attack spread for dozens of meters like a runaway energy train. Rain, who was beside Rhea trying to heal her with medicine, was shocked to see the energy pass so close to them. Ji-hoon's jaw dropped, and Rizal's eyes went wide. Throughout the forest, traces of the powerful attack lingered. The knight's entire armor had been destroyed, and from his mouth, a heavy cough was the last thing that came out. He fell backward into the large trench created in a straight line by the dark elf's attack, wide enough for a carriage to pass through. Ji-hoon was tremendously surprised, as the dark elf's attack was several times stronger than his own previous one. Not even Leo could believe he had performed something so powerful. The shock made the dark elf sink to the ground. He looked at the sword he was holding and saw it disappear. As the campfire was relit, Ji-hoon helped Rain look after both Leo and Rhea. The knight, unexpectedly, was still alive. Though he didn't move, he could see what was happening around him. Consumed by guilt, he cursed himself, unable to accept that he had been defeated by those he considered an inferior species. Recovering his sword, Ji-hoon ordered, "Put aside your complaints, we're going to have a different conversation." He drove the sword into the rock near the knight's shoulder, demanding that he answer some questions about the kingdom. Ji-hoon advised the knight to answer the questions without lying. Seeing no reaction, he asked the first question. "How many soldiers are there in the kingdom?" The knight did not seem to be lying when he stated that, combining archers and infantry, there should be over 3,000. Ji-hoon then asked about the knights patrolling outside the royal palace. However, the knight did not know how to answer. Ji-hoon questioned the purpose of the subjugation force, and the knight fell silent. The lack of an answer made Ji-hoon draw his sword closer, startling him and forcing him to respond quickly. Lockhands was a royal guard of the Zero Division, and received direct orders from the king. Beirut demanded stronger weapons, and therefore sent him to destroy everything around the kingdom in search of what they needed. The knight revealed that they were looking for strengthening stones to reinforce weapons and caves containing iron ore to strengthen the city walls. Hearing the easy answer, Ji-hoon wondered if his questions were too obvious. In knight defense, adventurers obtained items like strengthening stones or rank stones. In that world, the subjugation forces seemed to fulfill the role of adventurers. Ji-hoon moved on to the next question, asking if he knew Ares and Lib, the elite knights. The knight confirmed, and Ji-hoon asked, "How many skills do they have?" Everyone started with one skill, obtained another at level 10, and a third at level 20. After that, it varied greatly. The early stages, like at that moment, it was possible to estimate levels based on the number of skills. The knight then revealed that both used 2 skills. To Ji-hoon, this meant they were still below level 20. Unexpectedly, the knight smiled. "Seeing you ask about the number of troops and elite knights, don't tell me you are targeting the kingdom?" Ji-hoon questioned. "And what if I am?" Looking at the ogres playing with a small dragon as if they were babies, he mocked. "With just those things, do you really think it's possible?" Ji-hoon acknowledged he was right. Tearing down walls guarded by 2 elite knights wouldn't be easy. The comment made the knight laugh. "You're wrong about one thing. There aren't just 2 elite knights." Ji-hoon was taken aback by the statement. Until the end of the game in knight defense, the maximum number of elite knights one could obtain was 7. Furthermore, choosing S-rank knights had a crucial impact on the game. The player gained a knight every 15 waves, and the third only appeared at wave 30. They were currently only at the 6th wave. Ji-hoon couldn't believe they possessed more than 2 knights. Confident, the knight revealed, "Artilleryman Aker and Fanatic Archeon. The elite knights I know of already total 4. Ji-hoon frowned upon hearing him. He recognized that this was not a game, but reality. Soldiers got hurt, and the city walls suffered damage. Restoring damaged walls and healing wounded soldiers took a long time. The reason frequent wars were possible was precisely because of magic. The kingdom's gate had been restored. In the square, a person held a weapon containing a blue liquid, asking the wounded to form a line. Reloading the mechanism, the person carrying the weapon fired the energy liquid toward the wounded, hitting them all at once and healing them instantly. The injured knights cheered as they felt the pain disappear and their wounds heal. The young girl with pointed ears and large glasses, holding the healing pistol, confirmed her mission was complete. She was precisely the artillery healer, Akur. Discovering that, besides Akur, there was the sage, forming 4 S-rank knights, Ji-hoon imagined there could possibly be even more. The protagonist swallowed hard, wondering what kind of ridiculous situation this was. From the kingdom's perspective, they were playing on ultra easy difficulty. From Ji-hoon's perspective, as he would try to break the kingdom's defense, he was playing on ultra hard difficulty. The knight noticed the shock in Ji-hoon's eyes. The protagonist withdrew his sword, intending to ask one last thing. There were no legendary knights in the game, only the player. Ji-hoon was a being who did not exist in the game, and so he asked, "What is the legendary knight of this world, and how did you summon me?" Just as the knight was about to answer, a glow appeared in the sky. Ji-hoon gripped his sword and sliced the arrow fired at him. Several other arrows appeared next, forcing the protagonist to retreat. Rain was surprised to see so many humans approaching. Leo realized they were the knight's comrades. From between the trees, the entire Zero Division of the Royal Guard emerged. Their vice leader warned, "Next time I won't miss." The leader of the Zero Division smiled at the rescue. He touched the ground and used a regeneration skill through the earth. Standing up, he declared confidently, "I am a knight of the great kingdom. Did you think you would get information so easily?" Snorting, he delivered an ultimatum. "You, who heard about the kingdom, shall perish here, and your bodies will be taken by us." Ji-hoon, in response, revealed something curious. He had heard from the rat tribe that about 100 soldiers attacked the rodent tribes. In that group of humans, if the commander did not return after a long time, they would come looking for him. Seeing the entire division approach, Ji-hoon, accompanied by Rizzledrake, revealed, "I've been waiting for all of you." To the knight, the boy's words sounded like a bluff. The protagonist, however, asked, "If you are the commander, that means everyone else is weaker than you, right?" At the head of his squad, Lockhands asked what he would do. Ji-hoon smiled slightly, giving an answer he wouldn't understand. "It's all for the experience points." The knight frowned, irritated by the nonsensical response. Ji-hoon immediately shouted, "It's your turn. Attack. Rizzledrake!" The knight put his hands to his face, laughing out loud as he wondered what such a small monster could do. He then ordered the squad, "Capture them all!" At that moment, Rizzle opened his mouth, and a small point of energy appeared. A crimson glow dominated the entire forest, with energy so intense it could exterminate all existence. The dragon used its fire breath in a straight-line attack against the knights, turning them into charcoal at the mere touch of the flames. The dragon. Breath skill was overwhelming thanks to a 500% bonus to magic attack. Additionally, there was the party synergy effect, increasing the monster's attack by 20%. Lockhands managed to say only one word before disappearing. Unbelievable. Since night had fallen, the monsters received an additional 20% bonus to all stats, further strengthening Rizzle's fire breath, which tore through the forest like a flame destroyer. Rain almost fainted seeing the attack, and the dark elf Leo stood gap-mouthed. The ogres hid, completely stunned. Rhea, feeling the heat of the attack, woke up and rubbed her eyes, trying to understand what had happened. Rizzle's attack ripped the ground in front of them, even destroying a small nearby mountain. After the attack, the little dragon was exhausted. He received a penalty for mana consumption, and his fatigue increased. Ji-hoon stroked the little dragon's head, praising him for doing a good job. Since the recent battle, the group had leveled up. Ji-hoon, in particular, gained levels at an explosive rate. However, it was a bit disappointing comparing the number of enemies defeated. Apparently, they were all low-rank knights. Still, since they defeated numerous enemies, the harvest would be plentiful. Looking at the ground, Ji-hoon discovered that at every spot where a knight had been eliminated, precious stones had dropped. As Rhea's eyes sparkled, healing after seeing the glowing stones, Ji-hoon analyzed the enhancement stones, wondering if they would remain unbroken even against a dragon's breath. Just as he was about to ask for help collecting them, Rhea dashed off at full speed. Ji-hoon was then able to focus on the experience gained and distributed among the team members. It was distributed based on contribution. Rain, who had only used healing, unexpectedly gained 17 levels. Rhea and Rizzle, who participated directly in combat, gained 10 and 7 levels, respectively. Rain was only rank D, while Rhea was rank B and Rizzle was rank S. It appeared that the experience gained differed for each rank. With Rizzle reaching level 10, Ji-hoon imagined he would gain a new skill. Upon checking the information, he was surprised. Meanwhile, unexpected changes were occurring in Warren. An axe struck a trunk, and with a single blow, the Minotaur brought down the tree. Tar had felt an energy surging within his body. The sound of hurried footsteps also seemed to emerge. The Minotaur looked around, and over the trees could see 2 enormous ears, and between them, dozens of ratmen. The first tribe had arrived in Warren. Ji-hoon, unaware of what was happening, focused on what was important, trying to understand why the dark elf fought with such dedication. He knew it wasn't to protect the ogres, as the elf had also stepped in front of Rhea to protect her. The dark elf lowered his head, apologizing once more for the misunderstanding. Walking toward the now sleeping ogres, he revealed he was taking them to the sea and said his goodbyes. Leo recognized that he was weak. He vowed that when he returned to his village he would be stronger. No matter how long he trained, he felt his magic power had stagnated. But through the experience of the battle he just had, he discovered a way to become stronger. Ji-hoon, knowing the elf's situation, asked over his shoulder, "You have low magic power, don't you?" Using the governor's power, Ji-hoon observed, "About 10% of the magic power compared to other dark elves, or perhaps even less." You likely exhausted all your magic power with just 2 shadow prisons. Leo questioned how Ji-hoon knew all that. The protagonist explained firmly, "This is my unique skill." The dark elf believed Ji-hoon's excuse, being convinced more easily than he had imagined. Getting straight to the point, Ji-hoon revealed that the sword Leo had held was no ordinary sword. It possesses magic power and increases the attack power of whoever carries it. It is a magic sword. Leo observed the sword with interest, but looked away, composing himself. I already know about swords imbued with magic power. Before the dark elf could praise the sword, Ji-hoon held it out to him. "I will give it to you." Offering the sword, Ji-hoon also offered a role. "Take the sword and fight by my side." The dark elf warned that his species did not join forces with other races, but Ji-hoon knew how to goad him. "Don't you want to become stronger? Your magic power is low, but your physical abilities are better than the others. Overcome the weakness you have." Ji-hoon's words made the dark elf believe he could truly see through him. Even though he didn't like it, Leo recognized that Ji-hoon was right. Dark elves with low magic power were treated like trash. That was why Leo had set out on a journey to increase his magic power. Hearing Leo's story, Ji-hoon concluded, "So that's it. Your physical abilities are among the best of the dark elves. I will help you increase the magic power you lack." With the sword in hand, Ji-hoon also took out a green enhancement stone. He used the B-grade stone to try once more to increase the weapon's magic power. A powerful glow forced a slack-jawed Leo to shield his eyes. However, the enchantment failed, and the stone turned to ash. As Ji-hoon tried again, rain was drawn in by the bright light. This time, the dark elf saw the sword's magic power increase. Ji-hoon held it confidently. "The name of this sword is Screaming Piercer. It already has an enhancement level of 11. By showing he could strengthen weapons, Ji-hoon proved he could maximize the elf's magic power. Looking at the sword brimming with energy, Leo asked himself, "Can I really get stronger like this?" The dark elf was drooling from the corner of his mouth. Recovering, he told himself, "This is not a contract of submission, but a rational contract." The elf grabbed the hilt of the sword, timidly declaring, "Only 10 years. I won't stay longer than that. I'll stay for a short time." Ji-hoon accepted the offer, only to be surprised himself, because to him, 10 years was an incredible amount of time. The elf, already feeling the magic power, asked if there was a problem, and so Kim Ji-hoon and Leonor Bell Lion introduced themselves formally. Ji-hoon added Leo and the 2 ogres to the faction. Now only 1 member remained to complete the 1,000 required by the quest. Rhea and Rain had finished collecting the enhancement stones, filling 2 bags almost as large as themselves. Rhea picked up a strange stone she had found. Before Ji-hoon could discuss what it was, he heard a rumble. The noise came from Leo's stomach, who looked away in embarrassment. After that, they had dinner and talked, and Ji-hoon revealed the plan to attack the kingdom. The enhancement stones the knights had dropped were not as many as those Rhea had accumulated over the years, but there were several high-grade ones. Among them, something unexpected was also found: rank stones. This was an item that had a chance to increase a character's rank, something extremely rare. Ji-hoon took one of the D-rank stones and handed it to Rain. Rain was confused, but Ji-hoon asked her to use it. A powerful glow was released from the stone when the rabbit girl held it. The 85% success rate of the rank stone resulted in a success, and Rain evolved to rank C. As a readjustment, she lost 5 levels, dropping to level 21. The rabbit girl looked at her own hands. Though a bit dizzy, she felt power surging within her. Ji-hoon then gave her another stone, the C rank one. The glow emerged once more, illuminating the forest. The next day, the group left the camp to go to the swamp where the lizard men resided. Ogres liked areas near water. Leonor Bell Lion was leading them along the rivers toward the sea. Therefore, Ji-hoon persuaded them to go to Warren, since the village was also near the sea. In the middle of the walk, the dark elf looked back. "Ji-hoon, are you tired already?" Having walked with them for several days, in Ji-hoon's view, the others in the group were the strange ones. Remembering the name Leonor Bell Lion, Ji-hoon complained that it was too long and difficult to say. The dark elf allowed Ji-hoon to call him something more comfortable, and Ji-hoon settled on the nickname Bell. While the two were talking, Rain hurriedly pointed to a region ahead of them. The group had arrived at the entrance to the swamp. The air was somewhat gloomy and frightening. The dark elf praised Ji-hoon's idea of trying to ally with the lizard men, but reminded him that this race was as strong as the dark elves. This meant they would not accept serving just anyone. Ji-hoon smiled upon hearing the comment. "Just like you wouldn't accept?" The protagonist was confident about the mission. He believed that if the lizard men he knew were the same as those in the swamp, he would certainly be able to get their help. Thus, as they prepared to enter the swamp, a figure approached them from behind. As the group entered the drowned swamp, the ogres began to sink into the mud due to their immense weight. Leo, seeing the first ogre move forward, shouted, "Doom! When did you go in there?" The other ogre, carrying Rizzle on his head, joined his companion, also sinking up to his knees. Bell rushed forward to join the ogres and guide them. At that moment, a voice approached the group. Ogres are 6 meters tall and weigh tons. It is difficult for them to cross a swamp. The voice caught Jihoon's attention, and he spotted its owner, a lizardman. Holding a staff, the lizard with orange scales introduced himself. His name was Linak. Rhea observed the lizard, seeing one for the first time. The lizard man, leaning on his staff, approached and asked what they wanted, as the lizard man village lay just ahead. Jihoon revealed his goal of meeting with them. The old lizard then warned, "Lizard men do not like other races entering their territory, you know?" Jihoon remained undeterred, as everything valuable came with risks. The old man asked why the youth wanted to meet with the lizardmen, and Jihoon revealed the reason, making him burst into laughter. "We want to borrow the lizardmen's strength to attack the kingdom." The old man revealed that he had already witnessed the atrocities committed by humans, and understanding Jihoon's goal, realized why he was traveling with a group of diverse species. Linak looked around, spotting beastmen, a dark elf, and even ogres. Rizzle then flew toward Jihoon, drawing the lizardman's attention. As Rizzle landed on his head, Jihoon introduced him. "This is Rizzle Drake, my friend." The little dragon yawned, wanting to go back to sleep. Hearing that the human was a friend of a dragon made the old man thoughtful. Revealing that it was the tribal chief's birthday, the old man warned that it would be difficult to persuade him. "He is young and carries much suspicion, so you will need to show sufficient power." Jihoon heard the old lizard wish him luck. With a smile, the old man also volunteered to keep an eye on the ogres while they traveled. Belle thought it was an excessive request, but since Linak offered, Jihoon thanked him. "I'll be counting on you, old man." Thus, they ventured further into the swamp. Leading the group, Jihoon asked everyone to trust him. "That old man has a great affinity with me." Jihoon's comment surprised Belle, who realized he must have discovered this through his special skill. The old lizardman asked the young ogres to follow him. The ogres didn't want to follow just anyone, but the old man knew how to convince them. "I will give you food." The ogres then dashed toward him. Excited to see what would happen, the lizard commented to himself, "Mudrak will be busy today." Advancing through the swamp was difficult because of the mist, but not long after, they reached Mudrak village, home of the lizardmen. 2 large towers and a path of giant thorns formed the entrance to the village. Rhea looked around, and there seemed to be no one there, possibly because of the chief's birthday. They observed the surroundings. There was no one in the area of dry trees, not even in the houses. As they entered the village, Rain, who was following behind, asked hurriedly, "Is it really okay to enter without permission?" Jihoon didn't want to wait forever, as he needed to speak with the chief. Trusting Jihoon, the dark elf followed, believing there must be a way to persuade the lizards. Rhea, by his side, declared, "Jihoon always does what he says. I believe in him." Rhea's confidence made the young elf question, "Do you like him?" The foxwoman turned as red as a tomato, stammering as she tried to deny it. Walking ahead of the group, Jihoon stopped when he heard something. Rain, following behind, confirmed she also heard a noise. The protagonist closed his eyes, trying to understand what it was. Several staffs seemed to be striking the ground, and the noise grew louder, coming toward them. Jihoon pointed in one direction, but from the opposite side, a being shrouded in shadows and mist jumped toward him. Rhea screamed a warning, and the dark elf moved quickly. Jihoon noticed the danger and jumped back, dodging a spear attack that plunged into the ground, piercing the soil. The protagonist wheezed, startled to see the lizard man. It was a soldier of the species. The lizardman moved, disappearing from the spot. Jihoon saw a blade appear before his eyes. Mid-strike, Belle blocked the attack, parrying the spear. Rhea also moved, lunging at the lizardman. "Get away from Jihoon!" Jihoon tried to warn Rhea, but it was too late. The lizardman managed to push Belle away and focused on the foxwoman attacking him. The lizard ducked, dodging the blow, and counterattacked with the tip of his spear. Before anything worse could happen, Jihoon shouted desperately, "Stop!" The lizardman looked away upon hearing a human speak the language of monsters, and his spear also diverted, only grazing Rhea's arm. The fox retreated hastily. Now, facing the lizardman, they could see that the monster was nearly the size of the ogres who had accompanied them earlier. Jihoon tried to calm the situation, stating they weren't there to fight. "We want to meet with your chief." A human using the monster tongue caught the lizardman's interest. Bringing out some chains, he bound the 4 members of the group, making a decision. "Speaking our language does not make you a guest, but a criminal. You are not guests. You are intruders." Following behind the lizard man with his hands bound by iron cuffs, Jihoon activated the governor's eye. The lizard's name was Bork. Although he was a low-level soldier, he was rank B and above their level. Suddenly, the group began to hear the sound of rhythmic thumping against the ground again. Bork quickly told them to be silent and follow him. Arriving at the area where Bork was leading them, Jihoon was surprised. Before a throne in the middle of a lagoon, there was an arena stained red where fights took place. What caught the group's attention was the person fighting against a lizard man, panting heavily, that being wore armor with 3 stars on the shoulder. He ran in a final act of desperation, brandishing his sword. Midway, however, the blade of a Guandao halberd swept toward him. With a single strike, the lizard man cut the human in half. Ji-hoon frowned at the scene and, amidst the celebrations of the lizardmen, wondered why there was a knight of the kingdom there. The lizard man knelt before a massive red lizard. "Happy birthday, Lord Lyrak." The Lord praised the warrior's skill. "A splendid battle, worthy of the pride of the lizard knights." Lord Lyrak graced the occasion and bit into a large fish. Following this, one of the lizard men organizing the event ordered the next battle to be prepared. The lizard who had just won the fight walked over to a cell containing numerous humans and commanded, "If anyone wishes to face me, step forward." The humans did not understand the lizard man tongue. They were terrified, especially a young female knight with short blue hair. At that moment, Bork pulled Ji-hoon and the others into the arena, announcing, "Lord Lyrak, we have captured intruders." Lyrak ordered the lizard warrior to halt the battle in the arena. Bork then led Ji-hoon and the others to the Lord. Lord Lyrak's assistant announced to the captives, "Mudrak resides in the depths of the swamp. No one enters without a reason. We do not want guests. Why are you here?" Ji-hoon looked around and recognized the strength of each of those lizards. They were between ranks C and A, and all were above level 30. The true shock, however, lay elsewhere. The lizard man chief sitting on the throne. Ji-hoon never expected Lyrak, the chief of the lizardman tribe, to be an S-rank individual. Lyrak wiped his fish-stained mouth and ordered, "Speak, why did you invade Mudrak?" The protagonist was direct in his response, "We need your strength." Upon hearing the human's words, Lyrak burst into laughter. The lizardmen scattered around the arena joined in as they heard the joke. Rhea grew irritated and questioned what was so funny. Belle moved quickly to calm her. "The negotiations are only beginning." He reminded her that the group's lives were at stake. Resting his chin on his hand, Lyrak commented, "To say you need our power is a very bold statement. Fine. Is that all you have to say?" Ji-hoon knew he had to remain firm. If he bowed now, he would never be able to stand as an equal again. This world had been created with the same settings as the game, which meant Ji-hoon already possessed the essential conditions to lead the lizard men. Ji-hoon opened his mouth and roared out a command, "Lizard men, submit to me!" A deafening silence took over the arena. Bork immediately pointed his spear at Ji-hoon, cursing him. "You insolent wretch! You dare mock the chief and our people?" Rain nearly fainted upon hearing Ji-hoon. The dark elf frowned in disbelief. Bork hurriedly turned to the chief. "There is no reason to keep listening. Let's finish these bastards." Ji-hoon ignored him and stared directly at the lizard leader. Lyrak then ordered his subordinate to lower the spear. The tribal chief scratched his chin and remarked, "My choice is the same as everyone's in the tribe. I decide and everyone follows because I am the most powerful." Ji-hoon then questioned him, "Then whom do you follow?" A dark look clouded the chief's face. Bork could no longer stand to hear the human and raised his spear to attack. Before he could, Ji-hoon called out the name Rizzledrake, which sounded strange to many. The protagonist calmly revealed, "Rizzledrake is this one right here on top of my head." Lizardmen followed and venerated dragons. This was what gave Ji-hoon confidence. "This is the being you worship." Silence once again filled the place, only to be broken by the tribal chief as he observed Rizzledrake. "Most certainly not." But Ji-hoon thundered, "He is a dragon!" Hearing of the legendary race and seeing the human call something so small a dragon, all the lizardmen were confused. Belle turned to Rhea, asking if it was true. Rhea reminded him of the massive attack Rizzle had used, the breath attack that had devastated the entire human army. To the dark elf, dragons had disappeared hundreds of years ago, and according to the descriptions he had heard from his parents, they possessed great wings and could destroy entire villages with a single breath. He could not imagine Rizzledrake as a dragon when remembering those ancient descriptions. The leader of the lizardmen thought for a moment before confirming, "As you said, we truly worship dragons and follow their decisions. That is the absolute law of our tribe." However, Lyrak refused to recognize Rizzle as a dragon. As soon as they heard their leader, the lizardmen began to brandish their spears. "How dare you imitate a dragon? Finish them!" With the uproar taking over the village, Bork pointed his spear at Ji-hoon and asked the chief what he should do. Ji-hoon didn't know if Lyrak truly didn't recognize Rizzle or if he was simply pretending. Regardless, there was nothing left to do. The tip of Bork's spear touched Ji-hoon, causing a small crimson trickle to run down his skin. At that moment, Lyrak interrupted him. "I just thought of something fun." Keeping his eye on the 4 of them, he revealed, "There are 4 other prisoners waiting to face the pit." Rhea spotted a gate being opened on a wall, and several people were ordered to step out. There stood 4 humans who belonged to the kingdom. The tribal leader revealed that, not long ago, those 4 had invaded Kidrak, stolen treasures, and attacked a young warrior, leading to his death. After telling the story, he commanded, "Fight!" The shackles began to be removed, and after freeing the humans of the kingdom, he guaranteed, "Those who survive shall have their lives spared." As they stepped into the arena, the human group saw the body of their former comrade and kicked it into the surrounding lake. Bell watched this and quickly tried to intervene to find another way, but he received a shout from leader Lirak. Silence! Invaders have no choice. Jihoon caught Bell's attention with his words directed at Lirak. Fine. It doesn't matter if you don't know or don't believe. I will prove it. It would be against the lizard leader that he would show the power of dragons. Jihoon was about to use the second skill awakened by Rizzledrake. Swords and axes were tossed onto the ground. The kingdom's warriors, as they picked up their weapons, asked if they would truly be allowed to live if they survived. The team leader and a large man were both anxious. They had given up hope before, and now they saw a chance to survive. The young woman belonging to the group cowered, picking up a short sword. Enough of all this suffering. Rain, standing beside Jihoon, was fearful of facing the knights. Among the four they would face, there was a knight in full plate armor. To him, with the exception of the dark elf, everyone seemed weak. After a brief discussion, the group leader, a blonde man wielding a longsword, decided to go first. Confident and smoothing back his hair, he provoked them. Who is going to be my opponent? Any of you wild beasts can step up. Rhea, although she didn't know exactly what he was saying, knew it was an insult and became outraged. Bell wanted to face them all and eliminate them at once, but Bork, taking command of the duel, warned, "The duels will be one-on-one." Without understanding the lizard's words, the knight looked at Jihoon. "Translate, peasant." The protagonist brushed off the arrogance and informed him, "One-on-one battles. The winner lives." This made the knight even more confident as he continued to provoke and call for an adversary. Counting the stars on the shoulders of their armor, there were 3 rank A knights. While the arrogant knight was only rank B, he was the weakest. Knowing this, Jihoon called out to Rain, "Do you want to fight him?" The rabbit girl was startled, stammering, "Me?" Conveying confidence to the young girl, Jihoon affirmed that she had become stronger. "Trust in your power." Hearing her chief's words, Rain remembered the power Jihoon had given her. She felt that something had definitely changed after that day. Determined not to be just a porter forever, she took the backpack off her shoulders. Confident now, she clenched her fists. "If I'm eventually going to fight, I'm going to do it." Bork then ordered everyone to leave the arena, leaving only the 2 combatants. Jihoon, Rhea, and Bell crossed the lake surrounding the arena. Earlier, the tribal leader Lirak had stated clearly that the absolute rule of the tribe was to follow the choices of dragons. Jihoon had 2 cards up his sleeve to prove Rizzle was a dragon. He could have done it immediately, but after Rain had ranked up, this was her chance to participate in real combat. The knight gnashed his teeth with a look of disgust upon seeing Rain. "You are my opponent?" The little rabbit girl shivered with fear seeing the man up close. The knight sighed, irritated at having to face someone of the rabbit race, considered the weakest of all. Even doing this to survive, he felt no honor. The tribal leader's assistant ordered the start of the battle. Immediately, the knight unleashed lightning powers. "I'll end this with a single blow. Anything more would be a disgrace to my family." Using the style of the thunder god's sword, he lunged toward Rain in a flash of light. The young rabbit girl prepared to face him, but the lightning attack seemed devastating as it descended upon her. The lightning surged across the entire arena and nearly hit Jihoon and his group, reaching an extremely wide area. Rhea was shocked by the attack and was about to rush to Rain's aid. Jihoon knew that the old Rain, at rank D, would have seen that attack as a fatal threat. However, from the impact, smoke emerged. Rain, now rank B, was on the same level as Rhea. Despite having become much stronger, Rain fled while crying. Transformed into a rabbit, she hopped around the arena using her level 2 awakening skill. In Rain's mind, defeating someone so terrifying seemed impossible. The knight gnashed his teeth furiously, feeling humiliated for missing his attack. The rabbit girl looked back for an instant, feeling the lightning approaching. The knight charged again, putting all his power into the strike. Rain was so frightened she nearly fainted, but at that moment she remembered the praise Jihoon had given her. She did as he asked. She trusted her own power. Casting fear aside, she gave up on running. If she continued like this, she would end up witnessing the same tragedy that had befallen her brother. Rain suddenly stopped running and leaped, curling her body into a ball of fur. The knight's sword strike missed, and by the time he realized it, a scorching heat emerged. A fireball was created by the rabbit girl. Rain's new ability surprised even Jihoon. Rain's flaming paw lunged toward the knight's face. The enraged rabbit girl attacked him from a distance he couldn't escape. The flaming rabbit's attack struck the human, hurling him out of the arena. Everyone who witnessed Rain's blow was shocked. Had a truly dangerous situation arisen, Jihoon intended to act and interrupt the duel, thus proving Rizzle was a dragon. However, the result of the battle made him smile. The knight fell near his own team, completely scorched. Still alive, he coughed amidst the smoke being released by his own body. Making the flames disappear, Rain landed calmly. She deactivated her rabbit transformation and, observing her opponent, asked herself, "Is this really my power?" The aura around Rain glowed with happiness as she celebrated with Jihoon and Rhea. The protagonist gave her a thumbs up, praising her. "Very well done. From now on, you will be the strongest of the rabbit race in the world." Rain's eyes sparkled at her chief's words. Being praised directly by him made her smile awkwardly while blushing. Belle, who had observed the entire fight, knew that Rain had barely trained. She hadn't just changed, she had grown since they met a few days ago. Belle recognized Ji-hoon's power, the power to make people stronger, and felt satisfied with his decision to follow him. While the winner of the first battle was declared, Rizzle flew above the Lizardman village. The knight refused to accept defeat. "As long as I am alive, I have not lost." The lizards responded directly, "You lost." And so, his life was ended. The young blue-haired knight bit her lip. She couldn't stand to watch the situation any longer without doing anything. Bork ordered the next fighter from the human side to step forward, and immediately, the female knight advanced. As they crossed paths, the lizardman noticed the strange expression on her face. The knight jumping into the arena immediately also caught Belle's attention. Ji-hoon didn't remember all the rank A knights, but this was a knight he knew. She was the beauty sword of the Yellow Current, Cal Hera. On the outside, there was nothing special about her, but on the inside, she was completely different. The young knight's face was flushed as she murmured, "I've seen so much pain today. I'm already at my limit." With a devious look, she stated with delight, "I want to feel that emotion too." Cal Hera was a character based on a completely sadistic concept, someone who took pleasure in inflicting pain on others. She pointed toward Ji-hoon and asked, "You there? You're the leader, right?" With a provocative look, she invited him. "Don't you want to do this with me?" The village was tense with anticipation for the next battle. Rain frowned, wondering what was wrong with the female knight, as the expression she wore while looking at Ji-hoon was extremely unsettling. The lizard man in the arena asked Ji-hoon what the woman had said, and he revealed that she wanted to fight him. The lizard then ordered him to descend to the arena if he so wished. The protagonist analyzed the situation. Cal Hera, a knight among the highest tiers of rank A, was fully equipped with gear dedicated to her rank. This made him wonder if there was a reason to take such risks. Even among rank A, she was on another level compared to the ring-in-mouth knight, for example. However, no matter how strong Cal Hera might be, she could not withstand a dragon's breath from Rizzle. Ji-hoon believed all he had to do was neutralize her high-speed ability. His secret weapons were his sturdy body and the power to defeat someone with a single attack from Rizzle. Knowing he would gain a massive amount of experience if he won, Ji-hoon decided to face her. Analyzing the waters, Ji-hoon warned the woman that he always fought alongside his pet. She didn't mind. That only means the fun will be doubled. Ji-hoon borrowed Belle's sword, and the elf warned him about the knight's strength, but the protagonist was already aware. Advancing into the arena, he carried Rizzle on his head. The lizard tribal leader watched him with curiosity. In the past, he had heard his mother tell him a story. "The dragons saved us a long time ago and shared their power with us. Later, when you grow up, Lyrak, you will be able to use their power too." Young Lyrak had been excited, and for years he had desired the power of the dragons, the beings carved into the monuments scattered throughout the village. But to him now, it seemed ridiculous. There was no way something so small could be a dragon. Before beginning, Ji-hoon wanted to make something clear. He asked aloud, "If during the battle, the lizardmen watching are hit and perish, what will happen?" In Lyrak's eyes, the arena was large enough for two humans to fight without issue. Once the leader authorized the fight, Cal Hera brought a finger to her lips, wondering what she would do. Various options flashed through her mind: pierce, cut, tear, make him cry, split him in half or into pieces. Ultimately, her eyes settled on Ji-hoon, wanting to do everything she could to his body. After a long sigh, Cal Hera pointed her sword at Ji-hoon. To Belle, her stance was strange. Suddenly, hearts of pleasure appeared in the knight's eyes. In the hand not holding the sword, lightning began to surge. A yellow current of electricity took shape as she used the skill Thunder Spear. The dark elf couldn't believe what the human had created. The Thunder Spear attack tore across the arena, traveled beyond it, and forced lizardmen to use their shields for protection. Aghast, Belle recognized that anyone unfamiliar with this technique would have no chance of dodging. The lizard man, who protected himself with a shield, saw his defense gear penetrated by the sword thrown by Cal Hera. Belle hurriedly looked toward the arena for Ji-hoon. Ji-hoon was still in the arena, and since he didn't seem to have been hit, Belle believed he had dodged. Rhea, however, revealed that Ji-hoon hadn't even moved. The protagonist stood still, a slight wound on his cheek. Controlling the lightning cord, Cal Hera stared at Ji-hoon with her heart-shaped eyes and asked, confused, "Isn't this strange? I mean, you knew I would miss, so you didn't even try to dodge, did you?" Ji-hoon remained silent, choosing not to answer. The knight in full armor knew Cal Hera. She came from the 4th Division, the Chancer Knights, and was the second in command, the vice captain. She was the beauty of the Yellow Current, but she was known by another nickname, the Spectator of Convulsion. Continuously inflicting pain on her opponent, she attacked cruelly so they would be eliminated slowly. The knights believed only they knew this fact, as no enemy had ever survived against her. Similarly, Cal Hera didn't believe an enemy could know she would miss on purpose. Cal Hera pulled back the sword that had pierced the lizard man's shield. Having recovered it, she had a delicious idea. She pointed at Rizal and stated, "I'll get rid of that red fly first." Hearing her, a desperate hatred flared in Ji-hoon's eyes. This was the response Kalhera had been looking for. The sword flew toward Rizal, but midway, Ji-hoon blocked it with his enhanced sword. The protagonist managed to parry the blade, knocking it aside. Bell gnashed his teeth, recognizing Ji-hoon's disadvantage. He had no ranged attacks. Rhea had a plan. He needs to dodge and ambush her. Ordering Rizal to stay close to him, Ji-hoon moved to protect him. Kalhera continued to attack with the sword, using it like a whip. Ji-hoon could dodge, but he wasn't fast enough to close the gap in the meantime. All he could do was advance desperately. Kalhera was ready to welcome him, eager to enjoy the various expressions he would make. As soon as Ji-hoon got close enough, Kalhera stabbed her sword into the ground, using her yellow current ability once more. A massive electric field erupted, covering the entire arena with Kalhera at its center and Ji-hoon within its reach. The protagonist noticed the skill beneath his feet, the electric ring. Across the arena, the shock spread. Ji-hoon took the full brunt of it, his body trembling as he screamed. Rhea cried out for him, while Lirak watched calmly. Ji-hoon endured the attack through sheer force of will. He swallowed the pain and stood firm. The knight delighted in his expression. "This is so good. What will the next expression be? Show me more, more!" The armored knight had seen her use the electric ring many times. It possessed vast magical power. He expected her to keep it up until the opponent was on the verge of losing consciousness, only to inflict worse pain later. Inside the ring, Ji-hoon counted the seconds. "How does it feel to have your veins destroyed?" Kalhera distracted herself with her pleasure. "Does it bother you or excite you? Tell me how you feel." Behind his armor, the other knight watched Ji-hoon endure. Unexpectedly, 10 seconds had already passed. Ji-hoon analyzed the attack as he received it. Based on what he felt, Kalhera was at most level 29. In that case, her maximum mana would be 1500. The movement skill she used to enter the arena cost 400, leaving her with 1e100. The attack that pierced the shield cost 100, and she had used it 3 times. The electric ring cost 50 per second, and having held it for 10 seconds, another 500 were gone. Currently, her magic power was below 400, meaning she could no longer use her high-speed movement skill. Realizing this, Ji-hoon was the one who smiled in satisfaction. This change in expression made the hearts in her eyes vanish. "Hey, I don't like that look on your face." The electric ring ended. Ji-hoon staggered, murmuring, "You have to be hit to know if it hurts." Above Ji-hoon's shoulder, Rizal had used a skill, magic immunity, nullifying all attacks of a lower rank than his own. Simultaneously, a sphere of energy formed in Rizaldrake's open mouth. Ji-hoon commanded, "Use dragon breath." The powerful glow of the attack startled Kalhera. The fire cannon struck her, evaporating everything in its path. For the first time, Kalhera felt pain. She cried out in her final moments, as it was a feeling she loathed. Seeing the power tear through the arena along with the enemy, Lirak was shocked. His mother's words echoed in his mind once more. The dragon breath had vaporized a large portion of the arena's surroundings.